The story opens on a blood-soaked battlefield, where a once-proud sect lies completely destroyed. Soldiers arrive, only to witness a lone, wounded swordsman unleashing overwhelming power, proving the sect's strength was nothing but a myth. The scene abruptly shifts, revealing it was all part of a brutal VR game played by Dong Bongsu, a man drawn to extreme violence. In reality, Bongsu has kidnapped a corrupt CEO responsible for horrific crimes. Acting as a self-appointed hunter of predators, he prepares to deliver judgment. But everything spirals when the man fights back and the police intervene. Refusing to accept their view of justice, Bongsu makes one final move before being shot. Instead of dying, he awakens in a frail body within a martial world he recognizes. Realizing he has been reborn into a realm ruled by strength, his fear turns into excitement as a darker purpose takes hold. The scene shifts to the interior of the stable. Sasam works quietly among the horses, scrubbing away layers of dirt and waste. His hands move automatically, long accustomed to the unpleasant smell and the endless labor. For him, the work has become routine. Before he can finish cleaning, Makil suddenly appears behind him. The man immediately pinches his nose, clearly repulsed by the odor filling the stable. Despite his disgust, he shows no concern for the boy who spends hours working in it. With an impatient gesture, he signals Sasam to follow him, indicating that another task is waiting. Sasam pauses for a moment. The work here is not yet done, and he knows it will only pile up if he leaves now. His hesitation, however, is not tolerated. Makil's response is swift and cruel. He grabs the boy roughly and reminds him of the reality of his situation. Sasam is nothing more than an orphan surviving on scraps from the Dan household. Someone in his position has no authority to question orders. Resistance is pointless. Dragged away from the stable, Sasam has no choice but to obey. Not long after, they arrive at a blacksmith's workshop. Inside, an elderly craftsman stands among piles of worn-out weapons and rusted blades. Another man is already there, a large and intimidating figure. The moment he notices Dong U instead of Makil, confusion crosses his face, questioning why Makil himself did not come. Dong U dismisses the matter casually. He implies that Makil is busy elsewhere, most likely indulging himself without concern for responsibilities. The explanation does little to interest the old blacksmith. His attention remains fixed on the task waiting to be completed. The work is simple in description, but brutal in reality. A massive pile of broken swords and rusted weapons needs to be moved. The blacksmith comments that handling such a load would normally require more than 2 people. Dong U finds the situation amusing. His laughter rings through the workshop as he points out that they already have the perfect solution standing beside them. To demonstrate his point, he suddenly kicks Sasam viciously in the back, sending the boy crashing hard onto the ground. Sasam struggles for breath as the impact steals the air from his lungs. While he lies there gasping, Dong U impatiently orders him to stand and begin the work. His tone carries both cruelty and irritation. As he rubs his hands together, Dong U recalls his own plans for the day and quickly decides that Sasam can handle everything alone. Satisfied with the arrangement, he leaves the workshop without another glance, abandoning the boy where he fell. The old blacksmith watches the entire scene in silence. A trace of pity flickers in his eyes, accompanied by visible discomfort at what he has witnessed. Even so, he does nothing to interfere. With no one willing to help him, Sasam slowly forces himself to stand. One by one, he begins lifting the heavy sacks filled with rusted weapons and placing them on his back. The weight is overwhelming. His small frame trembles as he staggers forward. Again and again, he loses his balance, collapsing under the burden each time. However, he forces himself back onto his feet. Despite the strain on his body and the shallow rhythm of his breathing, he refuses to stop. The old blacksmith eventually speaks up, acknowledging the boy's effort. He suggests that Sasam take a moment to rest. The boy's face has become pale, and his condition appears dangerous, as if he might collapse at any second. Even so, Sasam insists on continuing, but his body has already reached its limit. As he walks, the world around him begins to blur. The edges of his vision distort, and sounds become distant and warped. Somewhere far away, he hears a voice calling his name. Within his mind, a question echoes repeatedly: whether this miserable life is all that awaits him forever. Unable to endure any longer, Sasam finally collapses from complete exhaustion. When consciousness returns, the world feels different. Before him stands a massive shadowy figure, radiating overwhelming pressure and hostility. Sasam, still dazed, can barely react. Without warning, a tremendous force strikes him. Pain floods through him. Fragments of memory begin surfacing. He remembers the moment a violent typhoon took away his family. The image of himself standing at the gates of the Dan household returns, begging simply to survive. Each imagined strike brings back another moment of humiliation from his life there. Slowly, a crushing realization forms within him. From the very beginning, his entire existence seems like a mistake. Deep within the darkness of his consciousness, something unknown cries out desperately, pleading to be saved. Then reality returns. Sasam awakens on the cold floor of the stable. His body is battered and broken, but something about him has changed. His eyes glow with an eerie red light. A strange, twisted smile forms across his face as he rises. The boy who once lived in this body is gone. His movements are calm and deliberate as he walks back into the stable. Catching sight of his reflection in the water, he recalls the name of the body he now inhabits, Sasam. A cough escapes his lips as pain surges through his fragile frame. The body is weak, thin, and severely damaged. Looking around the cramped and filthy stable confirms his suspicions. This place is exactly the same as before. That realization leads to the truth. The original Sasam died from the beating. Something else now occupies the body. As he tries to process the situation, an unusual phenomenon appears before him. A large blue screen suddenly materializes in midair. Glowing brightly, it welcomes him to Murim Online. The interface is unmistakable. A status window, a system, meanwhile. Elsewhere in the village, Makal walks through the streets holding a bowl of food. Irritation fills his thoughts as he mutters to himself. He complains about always being the one forced to clean up after other people's mistakes. His frustration intensifies as he recalls the recent incident involving Sasam and Pang Dorian, a man infamous for his violent temper. Because of that encounter, the household master had become furious, and Makal had been forced to deal with the consequences. For a brief moment, darker thoughts cross his mind. He imagines simply killing the boy and ending the problem altogether. The idea quickly fades when he considers the consequences. If discovered, his own life would be forfeited. Instead, he directs his anger elsewhere. Reaching the stable, Makal kicks the door open violently and throws the bowl of food inside. The meal spills across the floor. Nearby, Sasam sits silently. His glowing red eyes calmly observe everything. He begins analyzing the situation he now lives in. It has already been 2 weeks since he awakened in this world. During that time, he has gathered information by quietly listening to Makal and watching everything around him. One of the first things he noticed is that the people here speak Chinese. Yet this place is clearly not China. From the stable, he often observes guards training in a nearby courtyard. Their sword movements are unbelievably fast. Some fighters leap high into the air, moving far beyond the limits of normal human ability. Entire groups perform coordinated techniques with perfect precision. In this world, martial arts are not myths or stage performances. They are real. The laws governing this place belong to Murim. His second discovery is the system. The Murim Online status window functions exactly as expected. Yet only he can see it, despite its presence. He understands that this world is not a virtual environment. The people here are not artificial characters. They think, they feel, they suffer. They live according to their own will. They are not NPCs. Looking at the glowing blue screen, Sasam briefly wonders what he himself has become, human or player. In the end, the distinction no longer matters. This world is real. Suddenly, Dong Bongsu appears at the entrance of the stable. His expression is twisted with anger and mockery. He is still furious about being punished in Sasam's place. But this time, something is different. Sasam rises calmly to his feet. Without hesitation, he picks up the spilled bowl and begins eating the food from the ground as if nothing is wrong. The act immediately ignites Dong Bongsu's fury. The large man attacks, but Sasam reacts instantly. Using the bowl itself, he blocks the incoming strike. Shock flashes across Dong Bongsu's face. Before he can recover, Sasam delivers a precise counterattack. His glowing red eyes burn brighter as he grabs Dong Bongsu by the throat and slams him violently to the ground. Terror fills Dong Bongsu's expression as he realizes the truth. The boy he once abused is gone. What stands before him now is something entirely different. Without hesitation or mercy, Sasam releases all of his rage. His fists crash down again and again. Blood sprays across the floor as the brutal beating continues. The assault does not stop until Dong Bongsu can no longer fight back. At last, Sasam rises, standing amidst the carnage. A red aura surrounds him, closing his eyes. He takes a slow breath and reflects on his actions. Whether he is human or player is no longer important. In this world, only one rule exists. The strong survive. Strength determines everything. Here, there is no reason to hide. He is no longer prey. He is a predator. Beyond the village lies the vast jungle known as Gango, a place filled with creatures far more dangerous than anything he has faced so far. Thinking about them causes a smile to form on his face. Once this fragile body recovers, the hunt will begin again. For a true predator, this world is not a nightmare. It is paradise, and within the divine land of Murim, Sasam has finally found the place where he belongs. Returning to the present moment, Sasam lowers himself beside the motionless body of Dango. His muscles ache from the fight, and he takes a moment to regain his strength. The act of killing someone like Dango brings him no real satisfaction. The man was insignificant, hardly worthy of the effort. Even so, there is something Sasam still needs to confirm. With a calm, almost analytical expression, he looks down at the corpse. A theory has been forming in his mind, and this body will serve as the perfect test. As his focus sharpens, a familiar response occurs. A large blue interface appears before him, glowing brightly in the air. The inventory system activates instantly, its light filling his field of vision. When Sasam examines it carefully, he notices an important difference from what he remembers. In Murim Online, the inventory had always been structured into rigid slots, with each item occupying a fixed square. The version before him now is completely different. Instead of divided spaces, the inventory appears as one massive, uninterrupted void. Curiosity rises within him. Slowly, he stretches out his hand and pushes it into the floating screen. The sensation is unmistakably real. The space inside extends far beyond what he expected, vast enough to hold an enormous volume, easily surpassing 100 pions. His gaze shifts between his hand and the body lying on the ground. An idea begins to take shape. Remembering how certain mechanics worked in the game, Sasam approaches the corpse and presses his hand against Dango's face. The reaction is immediate. The body begins to twist and distort unnaturally, as if reality itself has glitched. Its form flickers like a corrupted image before blue light rapidly envelops it. In the next instant, the corpse is pulled inward, swallowed by the empty space of the inventory. Within seconds, Dango's body disappears completely. Nothing remains. Sasam stares silently at the empty floor where the body once lay. The implications are obvious. With an ability like this, disposing of corpses becomes effortless. A darker possibility soon crosses his mind. If lifeless bodies can be stored so easily, then perhaps living creatures could also be placed inside. The question that follows is far more disturbing. Would they remain alive within that endless space? His expression grows thoughtful. Further experiments will be necessary. The scene moves forward to the next day. In a crowded courtyard, several men gather together in casual conversation while Sasam quietly sweeps the ground nearby. His posture remains humble and slow, perfectly matching the obedient servant everyone believes him to be. Beneath that submissive exterior, however, his attention is sharp. Two guards standing close by begin gossiping loudly, laughing without restraint as they exchange stories. Sasam continues sweeping, carefully listening while pretending not to notice. Without warning, one of the men suddenly turns toward him, clearly irritated. A harsh slap strikes Sasam across the face with brutal force. The blow snaps his head violently to the side. He does not fight back. Blood trickles from the corner of his skin as he lowers his eyes toward the ground. The guard becomes even more frustrated by the lack of reaction. To him, the boy's silence feels insulting. He begins to assume that Sasam has somehow lost his ability to speak. Sasam deliberately leans into the misunderstanding. He adopts a blank and confused expression, allowing his gaze to drift as though he barely understands what is happening. The guard grabs him by the clothes, convinced the boy is pretending to be stupid. After continuing his harsh scolding, the man finally gestures toward a nearby horse and assigns him a new task, taking the animal out for exercise. Sasam bows awkwardly, deliberately stumbling over his movements to maintain the illusion. His clumsy attempts at speech only reinforce the idea that he cannot talk properly anymore. Irritated by the display, the guard waves him away. Soon afterward, Sasam walks through the village while leading the horse beside him. The streets are busy and alive with activity. The marketplace overflows with people as merchants shout over one another, advertising their goods while buyers haggle loudly. Though his head remains lowered, Sosum's eyes absorb everything: the layout of the streets, the faces of the villagers, the habits of the guards, possible escape paths. Every detail is stored carefully in his mind. Then something suddenly interrupts his observations. From a nearby alley, several children are hiding in the shadows, watching him with cruel amusement. One of them suddenly throws a stone. It strikes Sosum directly on the head. A sharp sting follows as blood begins to run down his forehead. The children erupt into laughter, clearly entertained by the hit. They continue mocking him while shouting insults. For a brief moment, something frightening emerges. Sosum slowly turns his head. The atmosphere around him shifts. His presence becomes heavier, darker for the briefest instant. His figure seems to distort as his red eyes ignite with terrifying intensity. The children freeze. One of them rubs his eyes, unsure if he actually saw what just happened. Then the moment passes. Sosum immediately returns to his empty, harmless expression, acting as if he does not even understand the situation. He simply turns away and continues walking the horse. Encouraged by his lack of reaction, the children begin throwing more insults and objects while laughing as they run away. Sosum pays them no attention. His head remains lowered, his steps remain steady. Their cruelty means nothing to him. Elsewhere, Machiel grumbles loudly while cleaning a pile of weapons. His complaints echo through the room as he curses Dongo and the additional work he has been forced to handle. Growing more irritated with each passing moment, he decides to visit Dongo's room to see whether the brute is still alive. When the door opens, shock spreads across his face. At that exact moment, Sosum calmly steps out of the room. Machiel's eyes drift past him into the interior. Every weapon inside has been thoroughly cleaned and neatly arranged. The unexpected sight leaves him confused and slightly uneasy. It appears as though Sosum not only completed Dongo's tasks, but possibly his own as well. Sosum simply watches him in silence, his face completely unreadable. Machiel eventually convinces himself that the boy must have changed after nearly dying. Fear may have finally forced him to become obedient. Just as that thought settles in his mind, Sosum slowly extends a small pouch toward him. Machiel opens it, his eyes widen. The pouch is filled with coins, clearly the result of hard labor. For a moment he is completely stunned. Then laughter bursts out of him. To Machiel the meaning is obvious. The boy has finally learned how the world works. With rough approval, he takes the pouch and walks away in high spirits. From a distance, Sosum watches him leave. His gaze remains cold and distant. The irony is almost amusing. Machiel does not realize that he has simply taken back his own money. As Machiel walks through the city streets, he tosses the pouch lightly in his hand, enjoying the sound of the coins. His mood improves with every step. Instead of visiting his usual place that night, he decides to indulge himself somewhere better. Eventually, he stops in front of a large building. With a playful motion, he flips the pouch of coins into the air before catching it again. A man standing at the entrance immediately recognizes him and greets him warmly. Machiel makes his intentions clear through crude gestures and an eager grin. The man seems slightly surprised by the request, but after confirming the payment, he accepts without hesitation. Money changes hands. Machiel is then directed toward a room located at the far end of the second floor. Inside the room, he waits impatiently. A short time later, the door opens. A woman enters. Her beauty far exceeds what he expected, leaving him momentarily stunned. Nervous excitement spreads across his face as he watches her move closer. She kneels gracefully in front of him, preparing to attend to him. Machiel's grin widens with greedy anticipation. Unbeknownst to him, he is not alone. Through a tiny hole hidden within the wall, a single glowing red eye observes everything inside the room. Every movement is carefully watched. Hidden in the shadows beyond the wall stands Sosum. His gaze is cold, controlled, and utterly merciless. The scene returns to the front desk, where the receptionist calmly guides the recent visitor toward the second floor. His eyes follow Machiel as he disappears down the corridor. A feeling of revulsion creeps into his thoughts. The idea of Machiel pursuing a girl young enough to be his own daughter leaves a bitter taste in his mouth. However, the pouch of coins resting in his palm quickly captures his attention. After a brief moment of hesitation, he convinces himself that money carries no sin of its own. With that justification firmly in mind, a pleased smile spreads across his face, and he slips the pouch into his pocket without further thought. A short time later, a shadow appears in the doorway. The receptionist squints in confusion, trying to make out the figure standing there. Recognition slowly dawns, but before he can fully react, The young warrior steps forward as if he belongs there. Irritation immediately replaces the man's confusion. Rising from his seat, he prepares to confront the intruder, clearly offended by the interruption and the boy's audacity. The young man answers in an unexpected way. From his hand appears another pouch of coins, one identical to the one Makil had delivered earlier. While presenting it, he pretends to struggle with his words, acting as though speech comes to him with difficulty. His gestures point toward a specific girl named Ang. The receptionist's irritation dissolves instantly. Greed takes its place. He eagerly accepts the pouch and opens it to inspect the contents. Just like the first, it is filled with coins. The realization that the night might yield twice, the prophet fills him with quiet satisfaction. Without raising any further objections, he gestures toward another room located at the far end of the hallway and allows the young man to pass. With nothing standing in his way, Sasam proceeds down the corridor in silence. Inside the room, Makil remains distracted, completely unaware of the presence approaching from behind. When a shadow falls across the doorway, it is already too late for instinct to help him. Sasam strikes immediately. A cloth loops around Makil's neck and tightens with ruthless precision. Panic erupts within Makil as the pressure cuts off his breathing. His body thrashes desperately, limbs flailing as strength rapidly drains away. Terror fills his eyes. Escape is impossible. Sasam shows no mercy. A brutal punch smashes into Makil's face. In the next instant, a powerful knee strike sends his body crashing violently across the room. The crimson glow in Sasam's eye burns brighter as he steps forward, unleashing blow after blow upon the helpless man. Desperation is the final emotion left in Makil's expression. Within moments, his resistance fades. His body goes still. The struggle ends completely. Sasam grips Makil's face briefly, checking for any sign of life. Finding none, he sits behind the corpse as a twisted smile spreads slowly across his face. The red glow of his eyes reflects the empty stare frozen in Makil's lifeless gaze. In the dimly lit room, Sasam appears like a predator standing calmly over its fallen prey. He raises a hand, preparing to remove the body. Working with careful precision, he begins eliminating any trace of what has happened. His attention eventually shifts toward the bed placed against the wall. A girl named Chojin lies there, her body completely still, as though she has fallen asleep. Sasam walks closer. She remains unaware of the violence that has just taken place only steps away. Taking a seat beside the bed, he observes her quietly. The marks on her face and the condition of her body reveal everything he needs to know. Within his mind, she is categorized instantly. A herbivore, weak prey. Someone lacking both the power and the will to defend herself. With his task finished, Sasam stands to leave the room. Before departing, his eyes drift toward a narrow crack in the wall, the same small opening he had used earlier to watch Makil. Placing his hand against the nearby surface, he activates the final step of his plan. The corpse disappears into his inventory. Not even the smallest trace remains. A faint sense of satisfaction crosses his mind. The earlier test he performed has proven useful. This ability will make future hunts far easier. Then another thought occurs to him. Turning slightly, Sasam focuses his attention. Just as expected, the familiar blue status screen materializes in front of him. His experience bar has increased. The conclusion is undeniable. Killing people in this world provides experience points. With enough accumulation, leveling up becomes possible. A faint gleam appears in his red eyes. Power in this world has no defined limit. The stronger he becomes, the easier hunting will be. Faster, more efficient. This world offers endless growth to anyone willing to seize it. Satisfied with this discovery, Sasam lowers himself to the floor for a moment, allowing his thoughts to settle. His revenge is far from complete, but the direction forward has become clear. The storm of violence inside him quiets, replaced by an unsettling calm. Elsewhere, the receptionist, Makil's younger brother, paces impatiently through the hallway. Not long after, Ang Gang rushes toward him, clearly arriving late. Confusion crosses her face when he questions her delay. Still, she is quickly ordered into the room. She apologizes nervously as she hurries inside. A strange uneasiness begins creeping through the hallway. The receptionist frowns. The silence coming from the room has lasted far too long. Something feels wrong. After hesitating briefly, he walks toward the door and knocks, expecting some kind of response. None comes. Irritation turns to anger as he calls out repeatedly. Still nothing answers him. Then a piercing scream echoes through the corridor. Alarm floods his mind as he immediately bursts through the door. Inside, Chojin sits curled tightly on the bed, trembling uncontrollably with fear. His gaze shifts across the room, and the full scene comes into view. From the ceiling hangs a dark figure. The body sways slowly. Two lifeless feet dangle in the air. It is Makil. The sight locks him in place. Shock and terror overwhelm his thoughts as he stares at his brother's hanging corpse, unable to comprehend who could have committed such a horrifying act. And somewhere beyond the shadows, the predator responsible has already vanished. The story moves away from the bustling city and reveals a broader view of the land known as Anhui Province. The region stretches across wide plains and winding rivers, its landscape dotted with countless lakes. Fertile soil blankets the land, allowing agriculture to flourish. Because of these natural advantages, trade routes expanded rapidly through the province. Merchants traveled constantly between towns, wealth circulated freely, and the entire region prospered. Yet prosperity rarely exists without consequence. Where wealth gathers, darker elements inevitably follow. The growing flow of money attracted criminals from every corner, bandits, thieves, and opportunists eager to exploit the riches moving through the province. Lawlessness began spreading across the land. To suppress the rising chaos, martial arts sects began appearing one after another. These groups enforced order not through law but through strength. Over time, a few organizations rose above the rest in influence and reputation. Among them, the most respected lineage belonged to the naming family. However, the most powerful and expansive force was the Dan family. The Dan family's dominance did not rely solely on martial power. Their true strength lay in their vast intelligence network, known as the Black Crow Division. This organization specialized in gathering information from every corner of the province. Its reach was so extensive that even the famed beggar sect could not match its ability to uncover secrets. Movements, rumors, and hidden dealings rarely escaped the division's attention. Recently, however, even this formidable network had encountered something deeply unsettling. Inside a quiet chamber, a subordinate respectfully delivers a scroll to his superior. The man receiving the report is Dio, the leader of the Black Crow Division. His face remains tense as he reads the contents. The document describes a disturbing trend spreading throughout the province. A sudden wave of suicides. Nearly 100 people have taken their own lives within a short period. Previously, such incidents had been rare, perhaps 1 or 2 occurring in a month. Now they appear in clusters across multiple areas. Each case seems flawless on the surface. Every investigation leads neatly to the same conclusion: suicide. Yet the very perfection of these cases disturbs Dio. The patterns feel unnatural, as though someone carefully constructed them. Seeking clarity, he asks for details about the first recorded death. The answer immediately raises concern. The first victim was Makil, a member of the Dan family itself. That single fact makes the situation far more alarming. Dio demands the location of the incident. When informed that the death occurred inside an inn, he decides to investigate personally. His subordinate reacts with visible unease at the decision, but Dio refuses to reconsider. He believes only direct observation will reveal what lies hidden behind these incidents. Not long afterward, Dio arrives at the Bungyanging Inn accompanied by several men. Standing before a particular door, he confirms that this is the room where the body was discovered. The inn's receptionist, Makil's younger brother, nervously confirms the information. Still shaken by the memory, Dio begins examining the room with sharp, attentive eyes. The more he observes, the more his suspicion grows. Everything inside appears too orderly, too sealed. There are no signs of forced entry, no evidence of a struggle. For an outsider to enter unnoticed would have been nearly impossible. This observation leaves only one plausible explanation. He studies the wooden wall carefully and notices subtle differences in its construction compared to the others. Dio explains that removing certain boards might create a hidden passage through the wall. However, there are no signs that the structure has been disturbed. He then looks toward the ceiling beams, questioning whether they could have been moved. The receptionist quickly dismisses the possibility, explaining that the beams are firmly secured between the ceiling and the floor above. With no visible entry point, Dio briefly considers the official conclusion again, that Makil truly committed suicide. Even so, the unease in his mind does not fade. He asks whether anyone occupied the room next to it. The answer comes immediately. Another guest had checked in at the same time as Makil. When asked for the name, the receptionist identifies the guest as Sasam. At that very moment, elsewhere within the city, Sasam calmly walks through crowded streets, while leading a horse beside him. His movements appear casual, yet his thoughts remain focused. He reflects on the fight from earlier. The experience gained from killing Makal had been significantly greater than from his previous victims. From this difference, Sasam draws an important conclusion. Makal had been a martial artist. Stronger prey provides greater rewards. Even so, Sasam understands that his own strength is still limited. Until his body recovers and his level increases, he must remain selective with his targets. Both civilians and weaker fighters remain within his reach, but stronger opponents could pose risks. His thoughts are interrupted when a broad-shouldered man approaches him with a crude grin. Several others quickly gather around, forming a loose circle that blocks his path. They begin mocking him, demanding attention. When Sasam offers none, their irritation grows. To them, he is simply an easy target. Sasam evaluates them quickly. Ordinary street thugs. A faint memory emerges in his mind. Even before his awakening, the original Sasam had technically belonged to the Dan family. Sasam briefly wonders how the former boy endured such humiliation for so long. One of the thugs grows impatient and strikes him. Soon a larger figure steps forward, grabbing Sasam and dragging both him and the horse into a narrow alleyway. For a moment, Sasam considers eliminating them immediately. His inventory ability could make the task simple, but he quickly abandons the idea. Killing them here would attract unnecessary attention, and the experience gained would be insignificant. Deciding patience is more valuable. He allows the harassment to continue. The thugs mock him further, delivering another blow. Then the situation abruptly changes. A powerful presence enters the alley. The men immediately freeze as a shadow approaches. A commanding figure steps forward and reprimands them for their reckless behavior. Fear spreads among the group as they address the newcomer with clear respect. Sasam quietly observes. The man identifies himself as Leader Jang. Leader Jang's eyes drift toward the horse. His expression changes as he inspects the animal with interest. It soon becomes clear that his superior possesses a strong fascination with high-quality horses. Taking this one would make an excellent gift. A cruel smile forms on his face as he watches Sasam. In that instant, Sasam understands the entire situation. The thugs were never truly interested in him. Their real target was the horse. With silent certainty, Sasam concludes they have made a fatal mistake. He drops his foolish act. For the first time, he speaks normally, his voice steady and clear as he directly challenges Leader Jang, inviting him to settle the matter immediately. Shock flashes across the gang leader's face. Anger follows almost instantly. Leader Jang launches his attack. At that exact moment, a brilliant blue light bursts into existence as Sasam activates his inventory. From the glowing screen, he pulls out a sword with calm determination. Leader Jang recoils in disbelief. The sight is incomprehensible. At the same time, the horse disappears into the inventory space. A violent surge of purple energy erupts throughout the narrow alley. Blasting debris outward, one of the thugs screams in terror, convinced they are witnessing something unnatural. Before Sasam's eyes, a familiar interface appears once again. His level increases. He has advanced from level 1 to level 2. At that moment, a powerful crimson aura explodes from his body, filling the alley with overwhelming pressure. Panic spreads instantly among the thugs as they realize the terrifying presence standing before them. Their courage vanishes. They turn and run in blind terror, shouting that the boy cannot possibly be human. And in the ruined alley, surrounded by shattered debris, the newly awakened predator stands alone, ready to begin the next hunt. The thug who had attacked moments earlier suddenly lost his nerve. Panic overwhelmed him, and he turned to flee. As he ran, his thoughts spiraled in confusion, struggling to comprehend the terrifying presence he had just witnessed. His escape did not last long. He stumbled mid-stride and crashed to the ground. Fear tightened around him as he realized the situation had slipped completely beyond his control. Regret surfaced quickly. Sasam had always seemed like an easy victim, someone who laughed nervously, took the beating, and handed over money without resistance. The thug had only wanted the usual easy profit. Before he could gather himself, Sasam reached him. A crushing stomp struck down, forcing the air from the thug's lungs. Sasam seized him by the collar and dragged him across the ground without the slightest trace of mercy. Some time later, the thug slowly regained consciousness. When his eyes opened, Sasam was already seated calmly in front of him, waiting the moment the thug stirred. Sasam rose and approached. Terror intensified as the distance between them closed. A knife pressed firmly against the thug's throat, and Sosum demanded information about the man who had died earlier while pretending to be fearless. Under the pressure, the thug quickly revealed the name, Jangho. Sosum considered it carefully, recalling the organization Jangho had mentioned before. When questioned further, the thug explained that the group was known as the Black Snake Society. More details followed in a rush. The Black Snake Society was one faction within the Ebony Syndicates that controlled the hidden streets of Bongyang. Jangho had not been an ordinary member, but one of its executives. Sosum continued connecting the pieces, and remembered that Jangho had also referred to a leader. In growing panic, the thug confirmed the identity of that leader, Bang Po-yom. According to him, the order had come directly from this man. Eliminate Sosum and retrieve the horse. As Sosum absorbed the information, the structure of the group became clear. The Ebony Syndicates and the Black Snake Society operated with ranks and leadership, functioning much like organized gangs. Sosum then demanded that the thug reveal everything he knew about both organizations. The implication was clear. The value of the information would determine whether he survived. Hope briefly returned to the thug. The next scene revealed his body lying lifeless on the ground. Sosum calmly opened his inventory and removed every trace of the incident, storing the corpses until nothing remained. Once finished, he sat quietly and reviewed what he had learned. The existence of the Ebony Syndicates stood out immediately. He had been searching for prey stronger than civilians, but weaker than true martial artists. And now he had found the perfect targets. From that moment forward, he decided these people would become his primary quarry. Looking down at his hands, Sosum noticed something unexpected. Every wound had disappeared the moment he leveled up. All injuries, cuts, bruises, and scars had healed completely. The realization carried deeper implications. If the healing effect was powerful enough, even severe damage to vital areas might be survivable under the right circumstances. As long as he was close to leveling up, calculated risks might be worthwhile. His thoughts then turned to the bright light that had erupted during the level up. While impressive, it also posed a serious risk by drawing attention. That glow had to remain hidden. The same caution applied to his inventory ability. If anyone discovered it, the consequences would be unpredictable. A hunter hiding among prey had to appear ordinary. Only by blending perfectly into the crowd could one hunt without fear. The safest strategy would be to level up only after finishing a hunt, or in places where only prey existed. After settling his thoughts, Sosum stood beside the horse. He reflected on how easily the encounter could have turned dangerous if Jangho had been stronger or more careful. Pretending to be mute was no longer enough protection. There was only one solution. He needed to grow stronger and quickly while remaining unseen. To do that, he would have to kill more enemies, and they would need to be stronger than the ones before. Shortly afterward, a message from the system appeared before Sosum. It reported a critical error within the Murim online system. The notice claimed that gameplay could continue normally, yet the error itself remained unresolved. Sosum reflected on the timing. The warning had appeared immediately after he reached level 2. He reasoned that the source of the error was likely himself, both the game system and his own existence, something that should never have appeared in this world, were functioning together. That contradiction alone could be considered a critical error. Opening his status window, Sosum noticed another change. The attributes that had once been displayed as question marks were now shown as gauge bars. He suspected this adjustment might also be connected to the error, since reality could not be measured with perfect numbers the way a game could. Next, he examined the list of skills available in the system. Several familiar abilities appeared: stab, slash, block, throw, and others. These were passive skills normally generated when creating a character in Murim Online. However, one skill immediately stood out. Spirit Eye was unfamiliar to him, and the system offered no description explaining its purpose. At that moment, a new notification appeared. The activation conditions for Spirit Eye had been met. The skill began activating automatically because an enemy with a level difference of 10 or more had entered within a 20-meter radius. As the message repeated, the distance continued shrinking. Watching the display, Sosum suspected the skill functioned as an early warning system. As the distance dropped further, his attention moved toward the gate. He quickly considered the possibilities. An enemy was unlikely. Few people would dare infiltrate the Danri clan, and an intruder would not approach so slowly. The person coming was probably a high-ranking expert from the clan itself. Sosum still had no clear sense of what a 10-level difference truly meant, but considering the effort and risk it had taken merely to reach level 2, the gap must be immense. Reaching level 10 might require the deaths of thousands, perhaps even tens of thousands, of ordinary people. That was the weight behind such a difference. Soon the door opened. A man stepped inside and placed his hand on Sasam's shoulder, confirming his identity before asking if he was responsible for Makel's death. The moment Sasam saw him, tension surged through his body. The man then circulated internal energy through his palm, sending it deep into Sasam's body. The energy traveled throughout him, examining every part of him from within. After completing the inspection, the man simply removed his hand. Without further action, he left with his subordinates. Sasam remained where he stood, silently watching them depart. Outside, one subordinate questioned the sudden departure. He wondered why the man had left without conducting a proper interrogation, and asked whether Sasam had seemed suspicious. The man admitted that suspicion had existed, which was why he had injected internal energy into the boy earlier. If Sasam had practiced martial arts even slightly, a trace would have appeared. When asked about the result, the man answered calmly. Sasam's body had been completely empty, no internal energy, no martial training. To all appearances, he was nothing more than an ordinary person. As they walked away, the man quietly reflected on the recent events. Perhaps those deaths had truly been suicides after all. If it was some kind of plague, he wondered how many more lives would be lost before it ended. Yet on a night when the moon cast an eerie light across Pyongyang, the so-called suicide plague suddenly disappeared. In its place, a new force began sweeping through the city. A wind of slaughter. Soon heavy rain poured over the streets. Inside a small bar, several people gathered around a table, drinking as they talked. One man raised a familiar rumor while taking a drink. His companion immediately recognized it as the story of the nameless swordsman, and remarked that almost everyone had heard of it by now. The first man insisted the figure deserved a grander title, the Great Nameless Swordsman, praising how he had begun hunting down members of the Ebony Syndicate. His companion warned him to speak more quietly, worried that someone might overhear. Laughing off the concern, the first man continued boasting that two powerful groups within the syndicate, the White Tiger Unit and the Red Wolf Sect, had already been wiped out. The second man reminded him that one faction still remained, and warned that speaking so openly could bring trouble if members of the Black Snake Society heard them. Unbothered, the first man confidently declared that their turn would come soon as well. According to him, the Great Nameless Swordsman would soon destroy the Black Snake Society too. While the conversation carried on, another man inside the bar listened silently from a nearby seat. He said nothing. After finishing his drink, he quietly stood up and walked out into the rain. On a stormy night under heavy rain, two guards stood watch outside the Society of the Black Snake. One guard had fallen asleep while standing. When another guard arrived and saw him, he angrily struck his head and scolded him for sleeping during duty. The first guard woke up in panic and apologized repeatedly. The strict guard ordered him to stay alert and reminded him that everything had fallen into chaos because of the nameless wanderer, who had already exterminated 3 members of the Black faction, leaving only the Black Snake Society. As he continued talking, he suddenly noticed the guard had fallen asleep again. Furious, he shouted at him, but when he looked closely, he realized the man was dead. Fresh blood revealed that someone had silently killed him with a sword. Before he could react, Sasam appeared behind him and slit his throat. Both guards collapsed lifelessly as Sasam stared coldly at their bodies. Sasam entered the society building, where many armed men were already waiting with swords, knives and daggers. An elder stepped forward, declaring he had expected Sasam and calling him a nameless rat. Arrows were already placed on the ground, ready for battle. Thunder roared across the sky as the elder ordered everyone to kill the intruder. The men rushed forward. Sasam activated sweep of 1,000 soldiers. With one sweeping strike, he beheaded most of them instantly. The few survivors froze in shock. One nervously asked their boss what to do. The boss shouted that he would kill Sasam himself and charged forward. Sasam grabbed one attacker, then seized another rushing toward him. Holding both men together, he drove his sword through their stomachs at once, killing them instantly. Suddenly a bald man attacked from behind, yelling that he had finally caught the slippery bastard and demanding Sasam surrender his head. Sasam simply stared at him, then activated his inventory and pulled out a blade from behind his back. Slicing the man's throat, the remaining men were stunned, unable to understand how the blade appeared. Sasam answered only with a cold death glare. Taking advantage of the moment, an elderly man threw a dagger that struck Sasam in the stomach. Blood flowed as Sasam dropped to his knees. The old man smirked proudly, saying that despite Sasam slaughtering their men like a monster, he was still human and could die. The surviving men smiled creepily as they watched. Suddenly, Sasam pulled the dagger from his stomach and burst into loud laughter. Shock spread among them. A sinister smile appeared as Sasam's eyes turned red. Like a hungry predator, he rushed toward them with 2 daggers. Their terrified screams echoed through the compound. Outside, one man heard the screams gradually fading. Panic filled him as he realized the massacre had already eliminated 13% of their forces. Terrified, he tried to justify their crimes to himself, claiming they had only extorted people, trafficked humans, sold women and alcohol, and killed creatures that barely looked human. He convinced himself there were far worse criminals in the world, but he knew they had to kill Sasam. He remembered a secret passage leading to Paradise Mansion, the residence of their leader, believing darkness would give them an advantage. He planned to lure Sasam there. Looking toward the mansion, he saw several men already hiding in the shadows, waiting for an ambush. Soon Sasam emerged from the building. The man ordered everyone to fire arrows. A volley of arrows shot toward Sasam, but he leapt high into the air and dodged them all. From a distance, the man lost sight of him and wondered if the mysterious figure had died. No one knew Sasam's true identity or even his gender, because his entire body was covered. Suddenly, a scream erupted behind them. One by one, they realized Sasam was silently cutting their throats. The man watched in horror as the slaughter continued. Gathering his courage, he approached Sasam and asked if everyone else was already dead. He demanded to know if Sasam was truly the nameless wanderer, and asked what crime they had committed to deserve such pursuit. Looking into Sasam's blood-red eyes, terror overwhelmed him. He screamed defiantly, refusing to believe Sasam was some god of death and questioning his right to act this way. Before he could finish speaking, Sasam moved instantly and sliced his throat. His head fell to the ground. Sasam's intention was simple. He wanted their lives. The scene widened to reveal the aftermath. Corpses covered the ground, blood spreading everywhere. Every body lay motionless with their throats cut. Sasam stood silently among the carnage, a faint smirk forming on his face. At that moment, the truth was revealed. The mysterious killer Sasam was actually Bang Poyam, the leader of the Black Snake Society himself. Sasam began his campaign by targeting the White Tiger Gang. His first victim was Jang Ho. After killing him, Sasam gained a level, but he still remained far weaker than the organization he had chosen to hunt. Because of that weakness, he relied on strategy rather than direct confrontation. He set traps, used arson to create chaos, and lured his enemies into carefully planned ambushes. One ambush followed another. Members of the White Tiger Gang fell continuously without understanding who was behind the attacks. By the time their leader, Bik Ho, finally realized what was happening, more than half of his gang had already been wiped out. During this wave of mysterious murders, villagers and local officers began speaking about the unknown killer. Because no one knew who the murderer was, people started referring to him with a new title. The name slowly spread throughout the region. Sasam became known as the Nameless Wanderer. After obtaining a special mask called the Nameless Wanderer, it became even easier for him to eliminate members of the Black faction without revealing his identity. Eventually, he confronted and killed Bik Ho, the leader of the White Tiger Gang. With that victory, Sasam's level rose to 5. At that moment, a system window appeared before him and informed him that new abilities had been unlocked. 2 skills were granted, King Gong and the 3 Powers Sword Technique. Once the notification ended, the window closed. His updated status appeared. It displayed his class as Catfish, his level as 11, and his progress at 14%. King Gong appeared as a martial technique that reduced the weight of the body, improving speed and movement. It was currently applied at level 0, with level 1 unlocked and 0% mastery. The 3 Powers Sword Technique also appeared in the system. Its first move was called Sweep of 1,000 Soldiers, a powerful horizontal cutting strike. The skill had been applied at level 1, with 0% mastery. Seeing these new abilities, Sasam formed a small smirk. With the 3 Powers Sword Technique now in his possession, he finally had the strength to face members of the Black faction directly. Over time, the legend of the Nameless Wanderer grew. Children even began playing games where they pretended to be the mysterious warrior. By then, the Red Wolf cult had already been erased from existence. Only one organization of the Black faction remained in Dangyang, the Black Serpent Society. Meanwhile, on the balcony of Paradise Mansion, the leader of the Black Serpent Society, Bang Poyam, sat quietly while watching the rain fall. Sasam eventually arrived there. The moment Poyam saw him, he recognized that the masked figure standing before him was the nameless wanderer. Sasam offered no response and remained silent. Poyam found the situation amusing. The rumors describing Sasam as some kind of hero seemed ridiculous to him, especially when he looked at the sinister appearance hidden beneath the mask. Sasam made it clear that he had never claimed to be a hero. This only increased Poyam's curiosity about why Sasam had been hunting members of the Black faction. Sasam reacted with a disturbing laugh as his bloodshot eyes glowed red. His explanation made it clear that the killings were never the actions of a hero. Poyam burst into laughter after hearing this reasoning. To him, it sounded as though Sasam had deceived the entire region of Bonyang. Sasam responded with another eerie laugh, implying that no deception had taken place. The people had simply chosen to believe the story they wanted. Finding Sasam increasingly interesting, Poyam stepped forward while drawing his sword. Even after crossing the river of 3 crosses in the past, he had never felt regret about the path he had taken. A disturbing smile spread across his face as he accepted the battle, regardless of whether Sasam truly was the nameless wandering warrior. Poyam clearly understood the reason Sasam had come. The masked hunter had arrived to kill him. Confident in his own strength, Poyam prepared to test Sasam in battle. A blue aura suddenly began to radiate from Poyam's body. His eyes shone with the same blue glow as he rushed toward Sasam. At the same time, a red aura erupted from Sasam's body. His blood-red eyes glowed intensely as he charged forward as well. Their swords collided. During the clash, Poyam struck Sasam across the stomach, cutting into his abdomen and causing blood to spill out. Despite the injury, Sasam continued attacking without hesitation. Surprising Poyam, Poyam then activated a martial technique known as Juna opening, calculating the distance and timing of the fight. He believed Sasam would not be able to reach him in time. With confidence, he prepared his next attack. In the following strike, Poyam's blade cut through Sasam's arm, severing it from his body. Blood sprayed through the air as Sasam recoiled in shock before falling backward. Poyam watched with a twisted smile. From his perspective, Sasam's body already appeared to be weakened and far from perfect condition. Even while defending himself from further attacks, Sasam realized the danger of the situation. If the battle continued at this pace, defeat would be inevitable, yet he still intended to continue fighting, even if it meant sacrificing more of his own flesh. Poyam reacted to Sasam's strange determination with mocking curiosity. Using the 3-pointed sword technique, Poyam launched another attack. The blow reopened Sasam's wounds and caused even more bleeding. Immediately afterward, Poyam revealed the true nature of his weapon. It was a flexible sword capable of extending like a whip. Using the technique, he wrapped the blade around Sasam's body like a rope, binding him completely. Once Sasam was trapped, Poyam severed his arm entirely from his body. Laughing triumphantly, he celebrated the success of his strategy. It was the first time he had used a flexible sword in combat, yet the method had worked surprisingly well. However, the battle was not finished. Despite his injuries, Sasam suddenly delivered a powerful kick. The strike sent Poyam flying backward across the ground. Sasam watched in shock as Poyam rose to his feet again. Behind Poyam, a massive blue snake appeared within his shadow. Observing Sasam closely, Poyam found his opponent increasingly unusual. Sasam had shown no hesitation in using his own body as bait during the fight. That behavior was not typical for a martial artist. Instead, it resembled the tactics of an assassin or a hunter. In battles between martial artists, survival often depended on who concealed their strengths and weaknesses more effectively. According to Poyam's observation, he possessed the advantage in that regard, while Sasam had exposed too much. Seeing Sasam's condition, Poyam tore open his shirt and concluded that his opponent no longer had much strength left. At that moment, Poyam's body began to transform. His physical form started to resemble that of a snake. The massive blue serpent emerging from his shadow fused with him, merging their bodies into one. With overwhelming power, the fused form rose into the air. Sasam watched the terrifying transformation unfold before his eyes. Poyam looked down at him with a cruel grin. In his mind, Sasam's fate would mirror that of Linnea, another victim from the past. Then the gigantic serpent opened its enormous jaws. With deadly force, it lunged forward toward Sasam. Po-yum suddenly roared with murderous intent and declared that the nameless murderer must die. At the same moment, he and the massive shadow snake lunged together toward Sasam. Sasam quickly dodged and tried to counter with a kick. During the movement, it became clear that dust in the air had temporarily blinded the shadow snake. Po-yum was stunned, but the snake still launched another powerful strike. The attack hit with tremendous force, causing heavy bleeding. Believing the blow had killed Sasam, Po-yum felt relieved and celebrated the end of the fight. But when he looked closely, something was wrong. The body struck by the snake was not Sasam, but a black doll. Realizing he had been tricked, Po-yum looked up and saw Sasam still floating in the air. Completely unharmed, at that moment, Sasam activated the Sami sword technique, second form, and rushed toward Po-yum. Po-yum responded with his own move. Jikdo Hwangryong, go straight to Huanglong. Charging to meet the attack, the clash went badly for him. Sasam's strike pierced straight through Po-yum's chest. Blood poured out as he staggered in shock. Even so, he refused to accept defeat. Sasam wondered if Po-yum had partially blocked the fatal blow with his hand at the last second, preventing it from reaching his heart. Still fighting, Po-yum attacked with his chain weapon. Sasam blocked it with his sword, but Po-yum grabbed the blade with his bare hands. Blood dripped from his palms, yet he held on tightly while glaring at Sasam with deadly determination. Sasam instantly opened his inventory. Suddenly, the bodies of every enemy he had previously killed began falling from the sky onto Po-yum, piling up and covering the battlefield. Po-yum rose in shock as corpses surrounded him. The mountain of bodies revealed that Sasam had killed far more enemies than anyone imagined. Furious, Po-yum roared, thinking that using corpses as weapons was completely insane. While he was distracted, an arrow suddenly shot toward him at incredible speed. He failed to notice it. The arrow pierced through one cheek and exited the other, causing heavy bleeding. The shock triggered terrifying hallucinations. Po-yum saw a gigantic wolf and felt as if he were being hunted. Still confused, he attacked again with his rope-like weapon, thinking Sasam was nearby, but the strike hit only a corpse, slicing it into pieces instantly. Before he could react, Sasam suddenly appeared behind him and drove his sword through Po-yum's back, the blade piercing out through his chest. Po-yum was too stunned to move. Clutching his bleeding chest, he wondered why every member of the black faction in Benyang had been slaughtered. Sasam calmly explained his view. Throughout history, humans had always killed other humans. Civilization had not changed that truth. The strong simply took everything from the weak. As Po-yum collapsed to his knees, Sasam stepped behind him and placed his sword against his throat. To him, this battle was just another example of strength-crushing weakness. Fear filled Po-yum's eyes. Sasam ended his life. At that moment, thunder echoed across the sky. With their leader dead, and the black faction of Benyang completely wiped out, Sasam quietly left the battlefield, wiping blood from his sword. In his mind, the preparations were finally complete. Now it was time for the next stage, a place with even stronger and more dangerous prey. With a dark grin, Sasam set his sights on the martial world. Far away, in that very martial world, the king discussed the approaching battle of Jiangma. According to reports, only 2 years remained before the Great War. Realizing time was short, the king, Murim, ordered preparations to begin immediately and summoned Kwangwun. When Kwangwun arrived, Mubin's command was clear: begin the first stage of their grand plan. And with that order, the first plan for the martial world was set into motion. Early in the morning, Sasam walks through the neighborhood as usual while taking his horse for a stroll. As he passes the tavern, several men outside are excitedly discussing the mysterious swordsman who recently wiped out Benyang's entire underworld. They talk about how criminals suddenly vanished overnight, leaving merchants and courtesans both relieved and shaken. Some people have even begun calling the warrior the great unknown hero, instead of the unknown swordsman. One man, however, feels uneasy. Even if the swordsman helped them, he questions whether killing people so brutally can truly be justified. Another man argues that those criminals deserved no mercy. A third quietly points out that neither the government nor the martial sects have ever protected ordinary people like them. The only one who did was the unknown swordsman. Realizing this, the first man sighs. Without that mysterious warrior, people like them would probably remain ignored forever. Suddenly, one man jumps up and begins loudly cheering for the hero who drove the criminals out of Benyang. Although the others initially find his enthusiasm strange, the celebration quickly spreads. Soon the entire street is filled with people dancing and shouting with joy. Watching the scene, Sosum quietly mutters that it might be time for him to leave this place as well. That night, Sosum returns to the horse stable where he lives. Suddenly, his system window appears, warning that an enemy 10 levels stronger has entered within 20 meters. Sosum senses an overwhelming spiritual aura nearby. When he opens the stable door, he finds two men talking inside. He immediately recognizes them, Gi Dihyo, leader of the Black Banded group, and Danli Chenwu, the flying demon sword of the Danli clan. Sosum kneels and bows respectfully. Chenwu walks to his horse and gently strokes it. The animal happily greets its master. While petting it, Chenwu calmly remarks that it is also time to say goodbye. He then discusses an upcoming event with Gi Dihyo. On the next full moon, the second daughter of the Namgung clan will celebrate her wedding. Chenwu suggests sending something precious to her as a congratulatory gift. If possible, he even wants to send two people from their side. When Gi Dihyo worries the Namgung clan might not accept them both, Chenwu simply laughs. As long as the plan succeeds, he does not care about the method. A dark blue aura suddenly bursts from Chenwu's body as he grips the man's shoulder with intimidation. Then he orders him to prepare for departure tomorrow. Before leaving, Chenwu also instructs him to bring Sosum along since someone will be needed to handle the horses. Sosum remains bowed until the clan leader exits. The next morning, the Black Squad gathers to prepare for their journey. Standing quietly beside his horse, Sosum stares at his hands while thinking about his future. If he truly wants to learn real martial arts, instead of relying only on system skills, he must find a proper path. Until now, he has merely copied techniques by observing warriors and gang leaders. But imitation alone is not enough. The worst option would be stealing a martial manual. The best would be becoming someone's disciple, but at 18, he is already considered too old. Still, traveling to the Namgung clan, one of the 5 great clans of the Central Plains, may give him the opportunity he needs, and perhaps even stronger prey. Meanwhile, Chenwu's assistant organizes the troops. Everyone has gathered except the clan's young master and young lady. The young master, Danli Kanghe, is staying at an inn in the Bungyang business district, while the young lady plans to travel separately. Just as the assistant prepares to depart, he suddenly realizes the troublesome young master has caused another problem. Kanghe is introduced as Chenwu's eldest son, a martial prodigy with talent great enough to enter the Namgung clan as an external disciple. Unfortunately, his character is far from noble. He is addicted to alcohol and women, and constantly involved in scandals. As one clan member heads to summon him, he complains about whatever trouble the young master has caused this time. But when he approaches the room, a violent green aura suddenly erupts from inside. In the next moment, Kanghe is blasted out of the room, as if struck by an invisible force. He crashes through a wall and collapses on the ground. The clan member freezes in shock before rushing to check on him. From a distance, Sosum silently watches. At that moment, his system window activates again, warning of an enemy 10 levels stronger within 20 meters. Kanghe spits blood as several teeth fall from his mouth. His body is badly injured, yet rage burns stronger than the pain. Pointing at the room, he swears revenge against whoever attacked him. Before he can even stand, another invisible strike slams into him, sending him flying again. The assault continues mercilessly, as the surrounding people realize who is inside the room. Shock spreads across their faces, but Sosum only smiles faintly. He immediately understands that the person inside is no ordinary fighter, but a powerful martial master possessing a special skill, someone strong enough to completely dominate Danli Kanghe. A lone martial artist relentlessly assaulted Danli, striking him again and again with crushing force. Danli lay helpless on the ground as the beating continued without mercy. Nearby, a man who had been watching grew increasingly uneasy. Unable to tolerate the brutality any longer, he rushed toward the scene. The martial artist turned his head slightly and regarded the approaching man with icy indifference. That single glance carried a heavy, oppressive warning not to interfere. At the same moment, a vivid green aura burst from his body, spreading an overwhelming pressure through the area. Without hesitation, he delivered another brutal kick that smashed into Danli's face, sending the young man skidding violently across the ground. The anxious man finally stepped forward and declared himself to be Gi Dihyo, leader of the Black Raven squad of the Danri clan. With fury and authority, he revealed that the victim being chased and beaten was none other than the young master of the Danri clan. He warned that if the martial artist refused to step away, he would not remain idle behind Dihyo. The Black Raven squad advanced as a single unit. Every member prepared to strike, their killing intent focused entirely on the martial artist. Among them stood Sasam, observing quietly with a calm and detached gaze. In his thoughts, Sasam admitted he had no idea who this man was. What troubled him even more was that Dihyo, a man known for understanding nearly everything about the Murim world of Anhui, also seemed unable to recognize him. Yet it was painfully clear that the stranger was an outside master of unimaginable strength. Sasam quickly realized that no one present was capable of confronting such a figure. The martial artist faced the charging squad without the slightest tension. In his mind, a simple thought echoed: he would not die here. To him, the situation was no different than a lion dealing with insects. A lion never needed to exert real strength to eliminate such trivial creatures. With complete indifference, he casually scratched his ear while the enemies rushed forward. He openly mocked the Danri clan, behaving as though he had never heard the name before. He even ridiculed the clan further by wondering if it was something meant to be eaten. Dihyo erupted in anger at the insult. The martial artist continued his mockery, suggesting that whether the clan was eaten or simply trampled like dirt hardly mattered. His attention then shifted to the broken body of Danli lying nearby. A cold smirk appeared as he looked down at the disgraced young master. Dihyo, seething with rage, drew his sword and ordered the Black Raven squad to protect the young master at all costs. At his command, every member rushed forward together in a coordinated attempt to kill the martial artist. In response, the martial artist slowly raised one hand. A terrifying green aura gathered around his palm, compressing into lethal energy. From that single hand, countless thin pins erupted like a violent storm. Within an instant, the needles pierced through the foreheads of every member of the Black Raven squad, including Dihyo himself, one after another. Their bodies collapsed to the ground. The martial artist calmly identified the technique he had just unleashed: soul-hunting flying butterfly. As Dihyo lay dying, realization began to dawn on him. He struggled to comprehend the identity of the man before him. Noticing that realization, the martial artist's expression darkened slightly. He remarked inwardly that Dihyo's eyesight was surprisingly sharp for an ordinary peasant. Then he revealed who he truly was: Tang-O, the soul-hunting poison hand. The narrative shifted briefly to explain the hierarchy of Murim. Among the countless martial artists in the world, 20 individuals stood above all others: 2 gods, 3 monsters, 5 towering figures, and the 10 great ones. Tang-O was counted among these 10 great ones and was recognized as the strongest member of the Tang clan of Sichuan. His full title carried a chilling reputation: Poison Hand. Pursuing souls, Tang-O. Anyone who opposed him would never escape his poisonous grasp, not even after death, even if their soul continued wandering endlessly. Watching from a distance, Sasam felt his concern deepen. It became clear to him that Tang-O truly was one of the 20 greatest figures in Murim. The reckless behavior of the Danri clan's wayward young master had created a disaster. If someone of Tang-O's stature had been offended, the entire Danri clan might be forced to shut its gates, depending on how severe the insult had been. Sasam could not help but wonder how such a situation would possibly conclude. At that moment, a young girl suddenly ran toward Tang-O and called out to him as her grandfather. Tang-O calmly turned his attention to her. She suggested that they should simply leave the matter behind, dismissing the entire situation as nothing more than the foolish actions of an ignorant peasant. Tang-O gave a faint smile, amused by her words. He remarked that perhaps she truly believed that. His gaze then returned to Danli, whose body had been thoroughly ruined. He noted that the young man had likely learned how vast the world truly was. It seemed ridiculous to him that a descendant of the Orthodox faction would spend an entire morning drunkenly causing trouble like an animal. Under normal circumstances, he would have taken one of Danli's hands as punishment. However, he chose to show restraint out of mercy, acknowledging that Danli was still a youth belonging to the Orthodox faction. Tang-O left a final warning. When Danli eventually regained consciousness, he was to be told that if he ever harassed a woman again, his life would not last long. Dihyo, barely clinging to consciousness, expressed gratitude for the mercy shown. He addressed Tang-O with respectful acknowledgement. Tang-O responded with a dismissive click of his tongue. With a small gesture of power, he drew the poison pins back out from the foreheads of the fallen Black Raven members. Then he laughed lightly and called for his granddaughter HWA, announcing that it was time for them to leave. Before departing, Tang-O cast a piercing glance toward the Black Raven squad. Every single member trembled under that gaze and avoided meeting his eyes, except for Sosum, who continued to stare directly back without hesitation. Tang-o immediately noticed the boy. Curious, he turned his attention towards Sosum and told HWA to wait for a moment. HWA appeared confused and asked the reason. Tang-o calmly approached the kneeling members of the Black Raven squad. As he walked forward, each of them dropped to their knees in submission. Only Sosum remained standing. Tang-o moved directly toward him. Sosum watched the approach with rising confusion, wondering why someone like Tang-o would come to him, and what possible reason there could be. HWA called out again, still puzzled by what was happening. Tang-o reassured her that it was nothing important, and explained that he simply had a question he wished to ask the boy. Sosum's mind raced with uncertainty. He could not understand why a legendary figure like Tang-o would want to speak with him at all. Finally stopping in front of him, Tang-o asked for the boy's name. Sosum remained silent. At that moment, Tang-o's patience snapped. A violent green aura exploded outward from his body, even surging through his eyes. His killing intent flooded the entire area as overwhelming pressure descended on Sosum. Once more, Tang-o demanded that the boy answer and reveal his name. Sam stood frozen under the crushing presence of the old master. Tang-o's hypnotic gaze felt as if it was piercing straight into his soul. Sam's silence irritated him, until another man stepped forward and explained that the horse handler could not speak. Tang-o's anger faded into curiosity. He studied the boy carefully, while Sam remained completely still. Sam soon realized this wasn't questioning. He was being evaluated. Strangely, the gaze didn't feel hostile. It felt like he was being inspected like a rare treasure. If someone like Tang-o had taken interest in him, this could be his chance to escape the miserable life of a stable hand. Without warning, Tang-o grabbed Sam's wrist and sent a surge of green energy through his meridians, testing his body. Whatever he sensed made the old master burst into wild laughter. At the same moment, something dark and storm-like stirred deep inside Sam. Earlier, Tang-o had been speaking with the Danri clan representative about their journey to deliver a Fergana horse as a marriage gift to the Namgung clan. When he learned Sam was the horse handler, Tang-o casually decided to take him along. The representative panicked because no one else could control the valuable horse. Tang-o dismissed the concern, saying the horse only needed to reach the Namgung estate. After that, the boy would belong to him. He even offered to send payment and a letter to the Danri clan leader. Terrified by Tang-o's terrifying eye, the representative had no choice but to submit. To save face, he claimed they had intended to gift the boy to the Namgung clan anyway, and formally handed Sam over. Tang-o laughed in satisfaction and ordered Sam to follow him. Soon Sam stood beside the Fergana horse, now separated from the Danri clan, as they watched helplessly. The representative clutched his head in frustration, while the injured young master was taken to a physician. The gap between their clan and a monster like Tang-o was painfully clear. By evening, they arrived at a bustling inn and decided to rest. Later that night in the quiet stables, Sam sat beside the horse and reviewed his strange ability. Since fighting the Black Snake Society, his control over his mysterious inventory power had improved. He could summon stored items within a 1-meter radius, swords, tools, even corpses, and launch them like projectiles. The problem was their speed. True masters could still react. To experiment, he pulled sand from the inventory and sent it back inside as blue light. Then a new idea struck him. His hand glowed with system light as he pressed it against his body. The system responded immediately. He realized something extraordinary. Anything that entered his body could be stored directly in the inventory. Excited, he named the discovery a martial technique, inventory divine art. Just then footsteps approached. Tang-o's granddaughter, HWA, appeared, annoyed and confused about why a mere stable hand had been summoned so late. Despite her irritation, she ordered him to follow. They walked through the inn hall, where Danri clan members watched suspiciously. HWA led him to a large chamber and opened the door. Inside, Tang-o knelt before a massive golden dragon mural. Without turning, he ordered Sam to sit cross-legged before him. Sam obeyed while HWA and Tang-o knelt behind him. Tang-o stared at him and gave a blunt order: remove his clothes, everything. When Sam stood completely unclothed, Tang-o examined his surprisingly strong physique and opened a golden case. Inside were the legendary Dragon Phoenix golden needles. HWA gasped in horror when she realized his plan. Ignoring her, Tang-o explained a proverb: An orange tree planted in the wrong soil grows bitter fruit. Sam was that tree, his talent wasted in the Danri clan. In the Tang clan, he could grow into something extraordinary. Tang-O planned to perform a brutal ritual. The pain would be unbearable, but if Sam survived, his muteness would be cured, and he would gain unimaginable power. HWA protested, arguing that such a decision required approval from the Tang clan elders. Tang-O's glowing eye silenced her instantly, warning her not to interfere again. Laughing madly, he waited for Sam's answer. Sam activated his spirit eye, its crimson light analyzing everything. Accepting the ritual meant unimaginable agony, but also the power and name of the legendary Tang clan. A predatory gleam filled his red eye. For power like that, there was only one path forward. In the Murim world, being born with a legendary body means you're destined for greatness before you even throw a punch. Talents like the heavenly meridian body or the ninth-grade sacred bone appear once in 1,000 years. Gifts that turn martial artists into legends. But even those pale in comparison to what Tang-O just discovered. Staring at So-Sam, Tang-O feels like he's found a diamond in a mountain of trash. Because So-Sam possesses something that has never existed in Murim history. A body of no meridians. A complete anomaly. Every human should have meridian pathways and acupoints. But So-Sam's body is completely empty. A blank canvas for martial arts. To Tang-O, this isn't a defect. It's an opportunity, with no natural pathways. He can carve his own perfect meridian system into So-Sam's body. If successful, he could revive the legendary 10,000 flower rain technique and make the Tang family dominate the entire Murim. Greed burns in Tang-O's eyes. He offers So-Sam a deal. Accept the Tang family name and become the key to their revival. Leaning closer, the elder asks if he's ready to abandon his old life. So-Sam simply nods. Tang-O is delighted but warns him the name isn't free. The ritual he's about to perform is brutal, and there's a real chance So-Sam won't survive the night. He asks one final time if So-Sam is ready to risk everything for power. So-Sam answers with silence, his cold red eyes simply waiting for the show to begin. Satisfied, Tang-O begins the Great Reformation ritual. He orders his granddaughter HWA to guard the door. No one else can witness what happens inside. As she leaves, the room falls into heavy silence. Tang-O rises into the air, toxic green Kai swirling around him, as dozens of dragon phoenix needles float beside him. These needles will carve artificial meridians directly into So-Sam's body. The ritual begins. A glowing needle pierces straight through the top of So-Sam's skull. Most people would be screaming in agony. So-Sam doesn't move. He simply lets the old man do the work. Meanwhile, his mind is racing. Tang-O and his assistants secretly communicate using sound transmission, assuming the mute boy understands nothing. But they forgot one thing. So-Sam can read lips. He learns everything, their plans, their theories, and their belief that he's some miraculous body never seen before. So-Sam almost laughs. The truth is much simpler. He has no meridians because his body is connected to a system. He's a hybrid that doesn't fully belong to this world. Since Tang-O knows nothing about the system, he invented his own explanation. So-Sam decides to play along. If they want a legend, he'll act like one. Tang-O carefully places needle after needle, rebuilding So-Sam's body from scratch. Soon his back is covered with glowing needles as artificial meridians form. And then something unbelievable happens. Kai begins flowing through the new pathways perfectly. Not only that, it moves several times faster than a normal martial artist's. So-Sam's body becomes a high-speed highway for energy. Tang-O is stunned, but admiration quickly turns into paranoia. A talent like this is far too dangerous to leave uncontrolled. So he prepares a backup plan. From a hidden box, he takes out venomous parasitic insects used by Tang elders for control. After examining them, he selects a nasty centipede parasite. If he can't fully control So-Sam, this creature will ensure obedience or kill him if necessary. Without hesitation, Tang-O slides the parasite into So-Sam's ear. Insurance. With that done, the ritual finally ends as the needles are removed. Dawn breaks. Tang-O proudly declares the transformation complete. The lowly stable boy is gone. So-Sam is now a member of the Tang clan, and with his new life comes a new name. From this day forward, he will be known as Tang-Sam. So-Sam quietly accepts the name, acting like the perfect obedient disciple. When the doors open, HWA watches as the former horse handler walks out into the morning light, a completely different man. From behind, he almost looks like a hero beginning his journey. But Tang-O forgot to check one thing. The parasite, once alone, so Sam's hand glows with blue system light. He summons the parasite out of his body and crushes it in his palm. A predatory smirk spreads across his face. The mute stable boy is gone, but the monster remains, now carrying the name Tang Sam of the Sichuan Tang clan. So Sam has secured the perfect identity to climb to the top of Murim. And this time, he plans to soar above everyone. High above the Anhui branch of the heavenly demon divine cult. Chaos is about to begin. Inside the branch leader's private chamber, Pegahile, the infamous silver demon, is enjoying a very private celebration when an assassin suddenly crashes through the ceiling. A blade shoots toward his head, but Pegahile casually blocks the attack with a burst of pink energy, kicking the attacker away and landing gracefully on the floor. Instead of fear, he looks irritated. Then he notices something tragic. A drop of blood has stained his expensive Western silk robe. His face darkens. He angrily demands to know if the assassin has any idea how much that silk costs. The murder attempt bothers him far less than the ruined clothing. The masked intruder ignores the complaint and attacks again, unleashing the ink-light killing sword technique. Black smoke trailing behind his strike, Pegahile summons a sword in his hand instantly. Their energies colliding, but the difference in power is obvious. With a mocking grin, the silver demon flicks his wrist and sends the attacker flying across the room. A massive web of pink energy erupts, ready to crush the intruder. Then suddenly, Pegahile pauses. He recognizes the technique. The energy fades as the attacker stabilizes himself. The assassin reveals himself as Mad Cloud, the 18th cloud of the cult, looking like a man who hasn't slept in years. The old warrior calmly states it has been exactly 9 years and 190 days since their last meeting. Pegahile bursts into laughter at the absurdly precise memory and relaxes in his chair, realizing this isn't an assassination attempt, but a message delivery. He asks why such a veteran would come personally. Mad Cloud explains he carries orders from the cult leader. The mission is simple but terrifying. When Pegahile hears the target's name, his playful attitude disappears. Shifting Shadow, the hero currently active in the orthodox martial world. A twisted smile spreads across his face as he imagines the coming chaos. He asks about the scale of the operation. Mad Cloud recites the command coldly, kill everyone, except Shifting Shadow and Namgung Hai. Pegahile mentions Tang-O will arrive soon, and his branch forces alone may not be enough. Mad Cloud reveals the cult has already prepared for that. 5 additional shadows are on their way. The massacre is guaranteed. Pegahile smirks with excitement. After delivering the message, Mad Cloud prepares to leave, but before he disappears, Pegahile lazily asks one more question. What's Shifting Shadow's real name again? Mad Cloud refuses to play along and vanishes into the darkness. Left alone, Pegahile sighs, thinking about how irritating his colleagues are. But the irritation quickly turns into jealousy. He hates that Shifting Shadow became a hero and married the most beautiful woman in Anhui while he rots away managing a gloomy branch. Staring at the moon, his envy hardens into murderous resolve. He summons his subordinates and orders them to clean the room and dispose of the woman from earlier. Then he adds another command. Execute every guard who failed to stop the assassin tonight. The subordinate bows in terror. Pegahile stands overlooking the city of Anhui, anticipation burning in his eyes. This branch of the heavenly demon divine cult is a true nest of monsters, and at its center stands the silver demon, also known as Ash Shadow, a man who finds beauty in bloodshed. With a wicked grin, he declares the real game has finally begun. Below the mountains, the city of Anhui sparkles peacefully, unaware that darkness is already moving toward it. Meanwhile, on the outskirts of the city, a caravan arrives earlier than expected. Tang-O looks ahead and notes they've reached their destination. Beside him, So Sam stares toward the territory of the Namgung clan. For Murim's newest psychopath, the real story is only beginning, and in Anhui, things are about to get very interesting. The Namgung clan estate is decorated for a grand wedding banquet. Lanterns glow, guests chatter, and everything looks like the party of the century, until the mood is ruined at the front gate. A guard is bullying a group of beggars who are simply asking for a bowl of rice to share. The guard explodes with anger, shouting at them to leave and even kicking one of them while he's down. The terrified beggars stumble back. Just then, someone steps forward to see what the commotion is. It's Du Hayo, the groom-to-be and the rising star of Murim. The guard quickly tries to cover up the situation, claiming he was just clearing away trash. But Du Hyo ignores him and walks straight to the injured beggar. With a gentle smile, he offers the man his hand and asks if he's all right. Then he calmly orders the guard to stop mistreating people and feed the beggars instead. The guard bows and obeys immediately. The surrounding guests whisper in admiration. Du Hyo is famous not only for his handsome appearance and calm demeanor, but also for his heroic reputation. Rumor says he once defeated the Yin-Yang twin demons alone, and he is said to be the heir to a legendary martial art. To everyone watching, he looks like the perfect hero. But the peaceful moment doesn't last long. Suddenly, Tang-O, the infamous soul-chasing poison hand, storms into the scene without hesitation. He shoves people aside, literally grabbing someone by the head and pushing them out of his way. The old master clearly didn't come for the celebration. He loudly insults the crowd, calling them useless and making it clear he doesn't respect anyone here. Du Hyo calmly observes the chaos without losing his composure. Tang-O then shouts loudly, demanding silence. His voice alone makes the entire courtyard freeze. Du Hyo steps forward politely, bowing with perfect manners and introducing himself. Tang-O examines him closely. After a moment, he snorts in disappointment. Meeting the famous hero in person, he declares is a complete letdown. Without another word, Tang-O demands to see Namgung-beak, the clan leader, and heads inside. Du Hyo calmly offers to guide him to the main hall. From the shadows, So Sam watches everything unfold. Something feels wrong, his instincts sharpen, and his predator-like vision focuses entirely on Du Hyo. Suddenly, his system warns him. A high-level enemy is nearby. But it isn't Tang-O, it's Du Hyo. So Sam carefully observes the way the man moves. His eyes glow red as he studies him. Then he realizes something disturbing. Du Hyo's body is too perfect. Every movement, every proportion, everything is unnaturally symmetrical. Humans aren't supposed to be that perfect. In that moment, So Sam understands. The hero everyone admires is actually another predator, hiding behind the mask of a saint. Just like him, they soon arrive at the king's hall, the symbolic heart of the Namgung clan, decorated with the swords of past clan leaders. Tang-O isn't impressed. He scoffs at the display, mocking the so-called kings buried with fancy swords. Before anyone can formally announce him, he kicks the doors open and walks inside. Within the hall, Namgung-beak is surprised, but immediately greets Tang-O respectfully, even calling him uncle. Tang-O grumbles about him losing dignity and acting like a child. Despite the harsh words, it's clear the two share a long history. Watching from behind, HWA is shocked to see her normally grumpy grandfather acting somewhat friendly. Soon Namgung-hai enters, greeting HWA warmly. Her calm beauty fills the room. HWA immediately teases her, saying the bride has grown even prettier. Du Hyo smoothly apologizes for the earlier chaos and introduces himself to HWA. HWA jokingly asks if she can call him brother-in-law, instantly making Namgung-hai blush bright red. She continues teasing, joking about how the shyest girl is the first to get married. Namgung-hai becomes completely flustered, while the room fills with laughter. Eventually, Du Hyo's attention shifts towards someone standing quietly in the corner. So Sam, trying to remain unnoticed, he bows slightly and introduces himself simply as Tang Sam, a servant of the Tang clan. Du Hyo smiles warmly and extends his hand for a handshake, but So Sam stares at the hand cautiously. His instincts scream that the man in front of him is extremely dangerous. Still, he accepts the handshake, a simple greeting, hiding the silent clash of two predators. Du Hyo then casually mentions he plans to take Namgung-hai to Soho Lake at midnight under the full moon. Then he suddenly invites HWA and the servant Tang Sam to come along. His perfect smile never fades, but as he looks directly at So Sam, the message is clear. This invitation isn't optional, the game has begun. Then the scene shifts to Soho Lake, where countless lanterns drift across the water, casting a soft glow over the night. From the deck of the ship, the group quietly admires the breathtaking view. HWA can't hide her excitement as she praises the beauty of the lake. Du Hyo explains that Soho Lake is famous for its scenery, especially at night. Beside them, Namgung-hai gazes peacefully at the moon's reflection rippling across the water. While the two women continue talking, Du Hyo approaches Tang Sam and suggests the men have a drink while the ladies enjoy the view. He says he'll bring some liquor and walks away. Tang Sam watches him leave with careful attention. To everyone else, Du Hyo is the respected future son-in-law of the Namgung clan. But Tang Sam senses something deeper. Beneath that flawless reputation lies something darker. To him, Du Hyo feels like a predator hiding behind a perfect mask, the kind of man who must be planning something significant. Just then, the system suddenly issues a warning. An enemy with a level difference of 10 or more has entered within 20 meters. Tang Sam immediately scans the area. He glances toward the entrance of the ship, but the alert can't be referring to Du Hyo. The vessel is only about 25 meters long, which means the only possible hiding place is the lower deck. A moment later, Du Hyo returns carrying a bottle of liquor, casually explaining that it took a bit longer because the drink had been stored in an unusual place. Tang Sam instantly realizes something important. Another powerful enemy has appeared. Du Hyo introduces the drink as a rare liquor called Golden Bud Wine and offers it directly to Tang Sam. Tang Sam pauses, then politely declines. He says he isn't feeling well and asks if he can take a short walk around the ship. Du Hyo agrees without hesitation and tells him he's free to explore anywhere on the vessel if he asks the boatman. As Tang Sam begins walking across the deck, the system continues updating the enemy's distance. 14 meters, 11 meters, but something feels wrong. The distance should increase as he moves away, yet it continues to shrink. 6 meters, 3 meters, 1 meter. Then another alert appears. After analyzing the repeated signals, Tang Sam arrives at a chilling conclusion. Including Du Hyo, there are 5 enemies on the ship whose power exceeds his by at least 10 levels. He quietly walks to the railing and stares across the lake while thinking through the situation. If the attackers intended to kidnap Namgung Hai, they would have already acted. The fact that they haven't means their objective must be something much bigger. Looking toward the city skyline, Tang Sam pieces it together. The real target is most likely the Namgung clan itself. If several martial artists whose strength surpasses his by 20 or even 30 levels are planning an assault, the clan could be completely wiped out. Tang Sam realizes he's caught in the middle of 2 opposing forces. On one side stands Tang O, currently allied with the Namgung clan. On the other side are unknown enemies preparing an attack. With the ship steadily approaching the city, Tang Sam decides he needs to act before they arrive. Meanwhile, several ships quietly approach the Namgung clan's city. Inside the city, a patrol of soldiers moves toward a nearby building. One of them questions their leader, Squad Leader Gung, asking if it's really necessary to inspect every location again. To him, it feels like a waste of time. The leader immediately erupts in anger. Grabbing the soldier by the head, he accuses him of questioning orders and reminds him that with the wedding approaching, security must be tightened everywhere. He shoves the soldier aside and orders him to stop complaining. Another soldier tells the rookie to quit whining and hands him a lantern before the two head inside the building. Left outside, the squad leader grumbles to himself. In his opinion, a real warrior should be cutting down enemies, not wandering around doing tedious inspections. Inside, the two soldiers enter an underground tunnel, lighting their way with a small candle. One of them complains that everyone else is drinking and celebrating, while they're stuck doing such boring work. Suddenly, the protagonist appears from the darkness and blows out the candle. The tunnel is instantly swallowed by darkness. One soldier panics and shouts that there's an enemy, but before either of them can react, Tang Sam strikes. His sword flashes once, killing the first soldier instantly. The second soldier tries to run, but Tang Sam cuts him down just as quickly. Outside the tunnel, the squad leader grows impatient and begins yawning, wondering why the soldiers are taking so long. He grabs a torch and decides to enter the tunnel himself. As he walks deeper inside, something on the ground catches his eye. A severed human arm. Realizing what it is, he panics and starts calling out for the soldiers as he moves forward. Then he finally sees the horrifying scene ahead. Tang Sam stands calmly in the tunnel, arranging the dismembered bodies of the soldiers. Their limbs are placed neatly on spears as he examines them carefully. Seemingly searching for something, the squad leader begins trembling with fear. Hearing the man's voice, Tang Sam slowly turns toward him. Then, in a calm and chilling tone, he says the missing arm has arrived. The two continued their fight, their swords clashing relentlessly. The old man realized that Sasam was far stronger than he had expected. With growing intensity, the old man swung his sword with force, but Sasam swiftly dodged the attack. The old man, filled with anger, accused Sasam of being the one who came with the poisonous palm, questioning why a guest would act in such a manner. Sasam declared that everything he was doing was for the sake of the Namgung clan. Hearing this, the man became even more furious. He shouted in rage, dismissing Sasam's justification, and condemning him for slaughtering their warriors and skewering them like meat. He rejected the idea that such brutality could be for the sake of any clan, and vowed that Sasam would not be granted a quick death. With that, he activated the Heavenly Wind Sword technique, first form. A blue aura erupted from his body. In response, Sasam activated his skill, the Three Powers Sword technique, second form, and a red aura burst forth from him. The old man followed up with flowing heavenly clouds. Sasam countered with direct strike at the yellow dragon. Their swords clashed once again, and the collision of red and blue auras shook the entire surroundings with immense force. In the midst of the clash, the old man managed to cut off the fingers of Sasam's right hand. Mocking him, he ridiculed what Sasam could possibly do without his fingers. Despite this, Sasam struck back and cut the man's cheek. The old man was shocked, realizing that Sasam had clearly lost his sword, yet still managed to attack. He understood that if he had been even a second slower, his face would have been sliced open. He was left wondering about the bizarre chains that made such an attack possible. Sasam then attacked again using his left hand, but his sword suddenly vanished. The man was caught off guard as Sasam followed up with a powerful kick, sending him falling straight down from the tower. As the old man fell, he felt that at this rate he would die in that moment. Sasam once again cut his cheek with a sword strike. Both of them continued falling together. Seeing Sasam in such a battered state, the old man laughed mockingly and concluded that Sasam had reached his limit. He realized that the earlier slash had indeed landed. Laughing further, he admitted that he had gotten worked up for nothing. Meanwhile, Sasam was breathing heavily. He checked his stats and saw that his HP and EXP were extremely low. Even so, he smirked, knowing there was still a way to win. The man grinned, interpreting Sasam's persistence as a death wish. He then activated the Heavenly Wind Sword technique. Final form, Heavenly Wind, cleaving the heavens. With a decisive strike, he cut down both of Sasam's arms. Sasam fell downward helplessly. The old man burst into loud laughter, mocking him as a pathetic bastard. He ridiculed the idea that someone like Sasam would dare crawl toward the great Gosengong, and declared it was time to end everything. As he moved in to finish Sasam, he suddenly noticed that Sasam was laughing and even sticking out his tongue. In the next instant, Sasam's sword moved on its own and pierced straight into the man's forehead. The man cursed him in his final moment and died instantly. At that moment, Sasam leveled up. A powerful aura surged from his body, so intense that everyone in the clan could see it. The clan leader noticed this overwhelming presence and wondered what it could be. Elsewhere, another man laughed loudly, declaring that now it was finished. Meanwhile, the scene shifted to the Danri clan, where chaos had already taken hold. Without warning, a group of unknown assailants launched a brutal attack on the clan. A full-scale war erupted within moments. Flames consumed the buildings, reducing the once-proud clan grounds to ashes. The air was thick with smoke, and the clan was drenched in blood. Everywhere one looked, there was destruction, lifeless bodies, and the unmistakable signs of complete devastation. Amidst this carnage, the patriarch of the Danri clan, Danri Chunwoo, forced himself forward despite the overwhelming odds. His steps were heavy, yet determined. As he approached the leader of the attackers, his voice trembled, not from fear alone but from disbelief and anger, as he demanded to know who they were and why they had chosen to attack the Danri clan. However, before any answer could be given, the enemy leader acted without hesitation. In a single, swift motion, he cut Chunwoo down. The strike was so clean and sudden that Chunwoo's head separated instantly from his body. His head fell to the ground, rolling lifelessly in one direction, while his body collapsed in another. The enemy leader stood still for a brief moment, staring coldly at Chunwoo's corpse. There was no emotion in his eyes, only purpose. Turning away, he calmly ordered his subordinates to report to Ashido. He declared that the Danri clan had been completely annihilated and commanded them to begin the grand plan. As the flames continued to consume what remained of the clan, the scene transitioned to another location. There, another clan leader was seen gripping a young woman from the Danri clan by her hair. Her condition made it clear she had already suffered greatly. The man examined her appearance with indifference, judging from her clothes whether she truly belonged to the Danri clan. Dismissing her as a waste of time, he killed her without hesitation. At that very moment, someone approached the area. The clan leader noticed the presence and smirked slightly, remarking that it seemed everything was already over. He mockingly commented on someone called Crazy Cloud, implying that this individual did not know how to enjoy such moments. However, beneath his confidence, his thoughts revealed caution. He reflected on the Namgung clan, known as the Shifting Shadow, and considered that such a powerful clan would never send such an obvious signal. A realization began to form in his mind, raising the possibility that the Namgung clan might have already discovered the plan. Acting quickly, he ordered his servants to block all roads leading to Anhui immediately. Without delay, he commanded them to implement the first stratagem exactly as instructed. His ninja-like squad swiftly assembled, ready to carry out his commands with precision. The narrative then moved to another unsettling scene. A group of people stood frozen in fear, confusion, and shock as they stared at something horrifying. The location was revealed to be the same place where, not long ago, a man had been laughing like a madman, while writing something on the wall using blood. The message written in blood was chilling and cryptic. It spoke of the moon, the emperor, and a figure who walks slowly becoming king. The full message declared that during the full moon, the emperor would fall, and the one who walks slowly would rise to become king. A clan member, shaken by the sight, turned to the patriarch and sought answers, unable to comprehend who could have done such a thing. The patriarch admitted that he did not know either. However, he was certain of one thing: someone was targeting the Namgung clan. With urgency, he noted that the wedding would take place soon. Recognizing the potential connection, he ordered an increase in patrol frequency and demanded heightened alertness. He instructed all members to report any suspicious activity directly to him without delay. The clan members responded with firm acknowledgement, ready to follow his command. As the patriarch walked away, deep in thought, he began piecing together the meaning behind the message. He believed that the emperor likely referred to the Namgung clan, while the full moon symbolized the wedding day. Yet one phrase troubled him deeply: the one who walks slowly. He struggled to understand who this could be, and questioned what was truly happening within the Namgung clan. The scene then shifted to an intense discussion among several squad leaders. The leader of the Firmament Sword Squad slammed his hand against the table in frustration. He firmly declared that the situation was nothing but a complete setup. He argued that Du Hyok had not even been with the clan for a full year, and expressed outrage at the idea of doubting their future son-in-law. Based solely on a single cryptic phrase, he warned that if such accusations became public, the Namgung clan would become a laughingstock. In contrast, the leader of the Limitless Sword Squad, Namgung In, calmly stated that he held a different opinion. He insisted that they must focus on the 8 characters left by the intruder. He emphasized that the phrase referring to the one who walks slowly was clearly pointing toward Du Hyok. This statement enraged the Firmament Squad leader, who reacted immediately with disbelief and anger. However, Namgung In continued, explaining that the intruder had managed to infiltrate the great Namgung clan, kill their warriors, and boldly leave behind such a direct message. This indicated that the intruder's goal was far greater than simple infiltration, assassination, or espionage. He further reminded them of the flash of light seen the previous night, interpreting it as a deliberate and blunt signal. The intruder had revealed their presence and then disappeared like a ghost, leaving confusion in their wake. The Firmament Squad leader, unable to accept this reasoning, shouted in anger, questioning whether they were truly considering arresting Du Hyok based on an unproven accusation left by an unknown intruder. He argued that doing so would dishonor the clan and damage their reputation, especially if it turned out to be a setup. He also pointed out the personal consequences, questioning how they would face Miss Hai-In if they acted recklessly. Another squad leader intervened, bringing a sense of balance to the heated argument. He acknowledged that both sides had valid points. While the intruder's actions were undoubtedly suspicious, it was equally important not to ignore even the smallest possibility. He then reminded everyone that the leaders of the Celestial Thunder Squad and the Celestial Wind Squad had already been dispatched to investigate. Confirmation followed that the Celestial Thunder Squad had been sent to explore the Hefei area. It was reasoned that if any individual or force was plotting something related to the full moon, there should have been noticeable movement by now. Just as the discussion continued, urgency struck the room. The leader of the Celestial Thunder Squad, Namgung Hu, arrived in great haste. His appearance alone signaled that something had gone terribly wrong. He immediately requested permission to deliver an urgent report. The king demanded to know the situation without delay. Namgung Hu, struggling to maintain composure, revealed the devastating news. Of all the members sent to explore, Not a single one had returned. The weight of his words hung heavily in the air, marking the beginning of an even greater and more ominous threat looming over the Namgung clan. In the tense silence that followed the report, another clan leader reacted with visible shock. His composure broke as he struggled to process what he had just heard, unable to believe that not even a single member had returned from the mission. The king stepped forward and placed a steady hand on the shoulder of the celestial squad leader, attempting to ground the situation despite the growing unease. He reminded everyone that the dispatched members were supposed to return within a shijin. Their failure to do so was not just unexpected, it was deeply alarming. The king's voice carried a heavy weight as he urged the leader to explain what he believed was truly happening. The celestial squad leader lowered his gaze, his expression filled with frustration and concern. After a brief pause, he admitted that the situation pointed toward a grim conclusion. It appeared that the Namgung clan was no longer simply facing isolated threats. Instead, they were completely surrounded by enemies. His words sent a ripple of shock across the room. Every squad leader present reacted with disbelief. One of them, unable to contain his confusion, demanded to know who could possibly have the strength to surround a clan as powerful as Namgung. As the question lingered, another leader began analyzing the possibilities in his mind. He considered the 18 channels of the Yangtze, but quickly dismissed the idea. There was no treaty binding them, and more importantly, a naval force of that nature would not operate inland. The theory did not align with the reality they were facing. Namgung Hu then reinforced the severity of the situation by stating that the Hefei area itself was already surrounded. This revelation only deepened the confusion and tension in the room. Another squad leader, now visibly agitated, raised his voice in frustration. He questioned what kind of force within Anhui could possibly achieve such a feat. The scale of the operation seemed impossible. He argued that there shouldn't even exist a group large enough to surround the Namgung clan in the first place. To him, the entire situation defied logic. For a brief moment, no one had an answer. Then the celestial squad leader spoke again, his tone now steady but ominous. He revealed that there was indeed one place, only one in all of Murim, that possessed the power required to surround the Namgung clan. As all eyes turned toward him, he delivered the name that none of them had wanted to hear. It was the divine cult of the demon celestial. The weight of that name alone shifted the atmosphere in the room. The earlier cryptic message resurfaced in their minds with renewed clarity. During the full moon, the emperor would fall, and the one who walks slowly would become king. The narrative then transitioned once more, this time to a solitary figure standing before the Sosum celestial clan. The man stood alone, calm and composed, with a faint smile on his face. There was no hesitation or doubt in his demeanor, as if affirming the prophecy written in blood. He repeated its meaning within his own thoughts. During the full moon, the emperor would fall, and he, the one who walks slowly, would rise to become king. In the next scene, Sosum was shown practicing magic with intense focus and unwavering concentration. His entire posture reflected discipline as he stood still, channeling energy through his body. A visible aura slowly began to form around his hand, growing denser and more defined with each passing moment. The air around him felt heavier as the magical energy gathered, indicating the level of control he was beginning to achieve. As he maintained this state, his mind drifted back to a recent battle, the memory surfacing vividly as if it had happened only moments ago. He recalled the exact moment when he had been fighting that old martial artist. The intensity of that clash replayed in his thoughts with striking clarity. Within his mind, Sosum acknowledged how dangerously close the fight had been. He reflected that if Gosangong Hubara had used the forms of the celestial wind sword technique at the precise moment, the outcome would have been entirely different. It would have resulted in his complete defeat. This realization lingered heavily in his thoughts, emphasizing just how narrow his victory had been. As he continued thinking, Sosum came to a deeper understanding about the nature of power. He recognized that martial arts, in some way, were far more powerful than any skill within the game system he relied on. This realization shifted his perspective significantly. He concluded that in order to truly become stronger, mastering martial arts was no longer optional, but absolutely necessary. The thought settled firmly in his mind as a new goal. Sosum then replayed every detail of that battle, carefully analyzing each moment. He remembered how he had managed to defeat the opponent, recalling every technique he had used and every move that had given him an advantage. The sequence of attacks, the timing, and the power behind each technique all resurfaced in his mind. These reflections consumed him completely, pulling him deeper into his thoughts. Gradually, he returned to the present moment. His breathing had become heavy, a clear sign of the strain both mentally and physically. Despite that, a sense of accomplishment filled him as he acknowledged that he had finally won. He reflected on the effects of Tang O's great purity revealing method, realizing just how incredible it was. The ability to gain so much knowledge simply by reviewing a battle left him astonished. While still immersed in this realization, Sasam continued forming energy in his hand. This time, the mana gathered into a much larger and more complex circle. The structure of the mana circle was intricate, indicating a higher level of control and understanding. After holding it for a brief moment, he released the energy outward. Even as the mana dispersed, his thoughts continued to flow uninterrupted. He considered that even if these meridians were only temporary, the experience itself had already been recorded within his body. That meant that with enough training, he should eventually be able to use real martial arts techniques naturally. This idea gave him a sense of direction and determination. At that moment, a system window appeared before him. Interrupting his thoughts, it displayed a notification regarding his progress. It stated that HLS Alapatio had reached level 13, and that he could now complete the first advanced mission related to class progression. The mission details appeared incomplete and somewhat distorted, but the essential information remained clear. Sasam immediately focused on the meaning behind it. A class advance was now within reach. However, the requirement soon became evident. The system clarified that the completion condition required him to kill 100 enemies who were level 10 or higher. The progress indicator showed 0 out of 100. This requirement made Sasam pause deeply. He began to think about the level of the opponents he had faced just the day before. The last enemy, in particular, had likely been around level 15 or 16. He had believed that he had grown stronger after that fight. However, now it became clear that the challenge ahead would not be easy at all. As he remained lost in thought, a sudden and massive explosion erupted nearby. The sound was deafening, shaking the surroundings violently. Sasam was instantly shocked, his attention snapping toward the source of the disturbance. The scene then shifted smoothly to 10 minutes earlier, revealing the events that had led to that explosion. Hyouk was seen moving carefully around the Po clan's territory, observing everything and everyone with sharp attention. His eyes scanned the environment thoroughly, analyzing even the smallest details. Within his mind, he noted that things had become complicated ever since that mysterious flash of light had appeared. The situation was no longer simple. Security across the area had been significantly reinforced. Guards were more alert, and the overall tension had increased. The nursery of warriors had also grown, suggesting that preparations for something larger were underway. Before continuing further, he recognized the need to issue a warning, though the exact target of that warning remained unclear in his thoughts. At that moment, the leader of the Boundless Sword Squad noticed him from a distance and called out loudly. The sudden attention caused a brief shift in Hyouk's focus. He immediately recognized who had addressed him and internally questioned why the leader was out at such an hour. Despite this, a faint smile appeared on his face. The expression was subtle, but carried a sense of confidence. He then chuckled lightly, maintaining a calm demeanor. As he greeted the leader, he explained that he had heard about a light being seen to celebrate a wedding by Agel, and that he had simply been checking on it while returning. The leader responded seriously, questioning what Hyouk had found, and whether the light had truly been a sign of blessing. In response, Hyouk only smirked. That single expression was enough to influence the members of the Boundless Sword Squad, who seemed pleased by his reaction. Some of them began to reach for their weapons, sensing tension. Before anything escalated, the leader spoke again, stating firmly that Hyouk had nothing to say because he had not found anyone. He declared that Hyouk would have to accompany them to the King Emperor's hall, and made it clear that refusal would not be accepted. As they began to move, Hyouk suddenly grinned and started laughing in a way that felt unsettling and unrestrained. He remarked that he truly liked this container, hinting at something deeper. He then questioned whether they had discovered it yet. The leader moved to attack, but before he could act, a massive explosion erupted nearby. The King Emperor's hall was completely destroyed in an instant. The destruction was overwhelming, leaving everyone shocked and terrified. The leader reacted with visible concern, realizing the significance of what had just happened. Amid the chaos, the leader sensed something unusual. He turned around quickly and saw Hyouk approaching him. His body was radiating a thunder-like aura, and his expression carried a dangerous smirk. Without hesitation, Hyouk activated the Lightning Sword Emperor technique. The first form, Lightning Strike, was unleashed with devastating power. A single strike resulted in an enormous explosion, shattering everything in its path. The force of the attack tore through the surroundings instantly. As the dust and smoke began to clear, Hyouk stood silently amidst the destruction. The remaining members of the squad were left in shock. Murmuring in disbelief, they struggled to comprehend what they had just witnessed. Among them, someone questioned what exactly was happening, while another pointed out the presence of young Master Du. Confused about why he was there, the focus then shifted to the leader of the Boundless Sword Squad. He had been thrown violently against a wall by the impact of the strike. His body was covered in wounds, cuts and bruises, with blood dripping from multiple injuries. The wall behind him had shattered from the force. Struggling to breathe, he reflected on the attack. Even with the advantage of a surprise strike, he could not believe that the entire squad had been taken down in a single blow. The sheer power of it was overwhelming. As he lifted his head, he saw Hyouk approaching him at high speed. Sword in hand, one of the squad members, a bald man, attempted to step forward and intervene. Another member tried to stop him, sensing the danger, but the bald man moved ahead anyway. With visible nervousness, he reached out and placed his hand on Hyouk's shoulder. Attempting to confront him, however, before he could finish, Hyouk swiftly swung his sword. In a single motion, the man's body was split into two. The brutal act sent shockwaves through the remaining members. Fear took over instantly, and they began to run in panic. They shouted warnings to each other, declaring that young Master Du had gone mad, and urging everyone to escape. Hyouk continued laughing, completely unfazed by the chaos around him. His behavior only reinforced the growing terror. Meanwhile, the leader, despite his injuries, began to realize something crucial. He understood that this was not the real Hyouk. Gathering his strength, he questioned the identity of the person before him, demanding to know who he truly was. The disguised man simply smirked again. As he used lightning magic once more, he refused to reveal anything. The thunder-like mana surged forward and struck the leader directly in the chest. The impact caused intense pain, forcing a scream from him. At that exact moment, an old martial artist appeared at the scene. Moving swiftly, he stepped onto the sword of the fake Hyouk. Without hesitation, he drove a pin infused with dark magic into the attacker's hand. His action was precise and forceful, immediately interrupting the flow of power. The confrontation reached a new turning point as the old martial artist stood firm, directly opposing the disguised enemy. A surge of violent energy erupted from Tang Wu's body, forming a thunderstick-like aura that crackled with destructive force, making Hyouk feel as if he had been struck by lightning itself. Even the slightest contact from Tang Wu's concealed needles carried a shocking impact, sending waves of pain through Hyouk's body. The intensity was unbearable, and Hyouk screamed loudly, his voice filled with agony as the electric-like poison coursed through him. From a distance, Sasam observed the unfolding battle carefully, and Sasam quietly concluded that Tang Wu had intervened exactly as expected, stepping in at the critical moment without hesitation. Moments later, attention shifted toward Hyouk, who groaned in visible pain as the needle embedded in his hand continued to torment him. His jaw tightened and he gritted his teeth, refusing to collapse despite the overwhelming discomfort. Tang Wu, showing no mercy, unleashed his power once again, triggering a massive explosion that shook the surroundings violently. The blast hurled Hyouk far away, sending him crashing onto the ground with immense force. With the immediate threat seemingly subdued, Tang Wu began to walk away calmly, as if the encounter had already ended in his favor. Nearby, the leader of another clan, who had been severely injured by Hyouk earlier and was still lying helplessly on the ground, struggled to raise his voice. With difficulty, he expressed his gratitude toward Tang Wu, addressing him as the soul-chasing poison hand, and thanking him sincerely for stepping in. Tang Wu responded with a cold observation, remarking that the Murim world had grown increasingly heartless in recent times. He reflected bitterly on the situation, noting how shocking it was that a son-in-law would betray and strike his own in-laws from behind, highlighting the depth of treachery spreading through the Jianghu. However, the situation was far from over. Hyouk suddenly rose again, his expression twisted into a smirk as he let out a mocking grin. He implied that such betrayal was nothing unusual, suggesting that everyone in the Jianghu behaved in the same ruthless manner. His words carried a chilling indifference, as if betrayal and deception were simply part of the natural order. Tang Wu's expression hardened instantly, and a deathly glare formed in his eyes. His body once again released a powerful, overwhelming aura, radiating intense killing intent. As he prepared his poisonous needles for another strike, he made it clear that he was not someone who relied on words before taking action. Even so, he gave a final warning, urging Hyouk to reveal his true identity and explain the situation while he was still being restrained. Hyouk responded with a grin, acknowledging Tang Wu's technique and recognizing it as the famed secret butterfly internal art. Despite his apparent interest in fighting Tang Wu directly, he held himself back, hinting that he had other priorities. Observing this, Sasam quickly realized that Hyouk was planning to escape rather than continue the battle. Sasam found the situation increasingly strange, noting that Hyouk had appeared alone and seemed to have been searching for something the entire time. At that moment, Tang Wu's granddaughter, Tang Hwa, arrived at the scene. She looked toward the battlefield with confusion, wondering why her grandfather was there. Sasam's thoughts immediately connected the situation, questioning whether Tang Wu had been searching for Tang Hwa all along. If that were the case, then the situation carried deeper implications than it initially seemed. A faint smirk formed on Sasam's face as a realization began to take shape in his mind. Without warning, Hyouk leaped into the air and launched a powerful kick toward Tang Wu. Attacking him while hurling an insult, Tang Hwa reacted instantly, shouting in anger as she unleashed her own poisonous needles toward Hyouk, demanding whether he truly intended to push the conflict to its bitter end. Hyouk merely smirked in response, unfazed by her attack, while Sasam moved swiftly to position himself in front of her, ensuring her safety. Tang Wu continued his relentless assault, throwing poisonous needles one after another toward Hyouk. In the midst of the battle, Hyouk made an unexpected move by throwing his sword away. This sudden action confused Tang Wu, who could not immediately understand why an opponent would discard their weapon in the middle of combat. The answer became clear in the next instant as Tang Wu noticed the trajectory of the thrown sword. It was heading directly toward Tang Hwa. A surge of panic overtook Tang Wu as he shouted out to his granddaughter. Tang Hwa stood frozen in shock, unable to react in time. In that critical moment, Sasam acted without hesitation, leaping forward and grabbing Tang Hwa, pulling her away from the incoming attack. The sword struck with devastating force, triggering a massive explosion that engulfed the area. The ground collapsed under the impact, and everything was buried beneath debris and dust. As the smoke and fog slowly cleared, Tang Wu rushed forward anxiously. He found Sasam standing amidst the destruction, holding Tang Hwa safely in his arms. Although she had lost consciousness, she appeared to have avoided any serious injuries. Relief washed over Tang Wu as he realized that Sasam had saved her life. With visible emotion, Tang Wu took Tang Hwa into his own arms and expressed his gratitude toward Sasam, deeply moved by what had just occurred. Above them, standing on a rooftop, Hyouk watched the scene unfold and burst into loud laughter. His mocking amusement echoed through the ruined surroundings. Tang Wu clenched his teeth in anger, while Sasam observed Hyouk carefully, recognizing the immense strength he possessed. Sasam acknowledged internally that Hyouk was powerful enough to stand on equal footing with Tang Wu. Marking him as a true master, Hyouk then addressed Tang Wu with a smirk, stating that he would return to see him again soon. His tone carried a sense of confidence and inevitability, as if their next encounter was already destined. Tang Wu remained tense, his anger evident as he prepared himself for the possibility of another clash. As Hyouk began to leave, he suddenly sensed an overwhelming aura from behind. The unexpected presence startled him, and he paused briefly, questioning what he had just felt. His gaze shifted toward Sasam, who stood there with a wild, almost unhinged grin. Realization dawned on Hyouk as he connected Sasam to a previous scene, identifying him as the person responsible for the mysterious pillar of light. From the previous night, and for interfering with his plans, Hyouk acknowledged Sasam's involvement, expressing a keen interest in meeting him again in the future. With that, he disappeared from the scene, leaving behind an atmosphere heavy with tension and unresolved conflict. Tang Wu shouted angrily after him, cursing him and refusing to accept his escape. Amidst the chaos, Tang Hwa began to regain consciousness, coughing weakly as she opened her eyes. She called out to her grandfather, her voice faint but filled with concern. Tang Wu realized the gravity of the situation and acknowledged that they had been completely deceived. As the scene transitioned into the evening, the full extent of the destruction became visible. The clan lay in ruins, its once proud structures reduced to rubble. The patriarch sat among the devastation, surrounded by countless lifeless bodies. Carrion birds feasted on the remains, creating a grim and haunting atmosphere. The patriarch laughed bitterly, overwhelmed by frustration, as he reflected on how only 4 individuals had managed to reduce the king's hall to such a catastrophic state. He further analyzed the situation, recalling that one of the individuals involved was believed to be among the yin-yang twin demons who had been killed by Du Hyook. This realization led him to conclude that all of Du Hyook's actions, including his marriage to Hai, had been part of a carefully orchestrated plan from the very beginning. The situation had been manipulated with precision, leaving them trapped. He noted that all messenger pigeons sent to the Murim Alliance had been intercepted and killed by peregrine falcons, cutting off any possibility of communication. With the Namgung clan's defensive 3 Emperors 9 Kings formation now destroyed, they were left completely vulnerable, like rats trapped in a jar with no escape. Namgung stepped forward respectfully, asking for permission to speak. He outlined the 3 possible options available to them: to fight, to flee, or to send a messenger. The patriarch immediately dismissed the first 2 options, acknowledging that both were impossible under the current circumstances. Focusing on the third option, Namgung explained that sending a messenger would involve reporting their situation to the Murim Alliance and waiting for reinforcements. He estimated that it would take less than a week for help to arrive if the messenger traveled at full speed. The patriarch sighed heavily, admitting that he had already considered this option, but questioned who could possibly break through the enemy's siege and successfully deliver the message. Namgung revealed that there was indeed one person capable of such a feat, an absolute master with exceptional movement skills who could overcome the siege. The patriarch immediately thought of Elder Tang, but doubted whether even he could accomplish such a task alone against so many enemies. After a brief pause, Namgung proposed a different approach. He suggested that they would use the people currently within their clan who were desperate to escape. Specifically, he referred to the hundreds of wedding guests, implying that they could serve as a means to carry out their plan and create an opportunity to send the message. Murim 22. Night settled quietly, and the moon's reflection shimmered beautifully across the flowing river, casting a calm yet tense atmosphere over everything. Inside, Tang Wu and HWA were seated in front of the clan leader, while Sasam stood nearby. HWA appeared slightly nervous, her unease visible in her expression. The leader addressed Tang Wu, telling him to stop behaving like a child. In response, Tang Wu spoke nonchalantly, declaring that someone who had received the surname of the Tang clan was someone trusted, and therefore there was no need to worry, and hesitation should be cast aside. Hearing this, the leader lowered his head and clasped his hands together respectfully, addressing him as Uncle Tang, and requesting that he evacuate with the guests of honor to Soho and seek reinforcements. Tang Wu, clearly annoyed, scoffed and argued that if they did that, the majority would be left vulnerable against the enemy's martial skills. He clenched his teeth in frustration. Despite this, the leader remained calm and acknowledged that Tang Wu might know better than him. He then carefully explained the plan in detail, stating that if they sailed by boat from Soho to the Yangtze River, they would be able to receive aid from the fortress of the 18 Ways of the Yangtze River. He added that all the boats had already been prepared, and that the clan's guests and servants had been gathered at the South Water Gate. Tang Wu then asked when they should depart, to which the leader responded firmly that they would leave today. Accepting this, Tang Wu began to walk away, stating that he would prepare. HWA watched him leave, her worry growing heavier. As Tang Wu reached the door, the leader quietly called out to him and asked that when they left, he should take Hai along as well, explaining that he did not want her to witness him fighting that man. Tang Wu paused and asked if that was truly all. At this, the leader broke down, his emotions spilling over as he admitted his fear that he and the Namgung clan might not even be able to hold out for 11 days. Hearing this, Tang Wu exploded in rage. He turned back sharply, his face filled with fury, and shouted that the leader was insane. He refused to accept such a fate, declaring himself as a poison hand and a pursuing soul-raising handler. Tang O, he commanded the leader to resist, even if it meant betting his life, promising that he would return with reinforcements. With that, Tang Wu slammed the door hard and left. HWA called out to him desperately, but he did not stop or listen. Watching this unfold, the leader fell into deep sorrow, while Sasam silently observed him. The scene then shifted smoothly to the riverside, where Sasam stood alone, staring at the water. He reflected inwardly, believing that rescuing Tang Hwa had been the right decision. He acknowledged that he had never expected to hear the Namgung clan's plan directly. Yet he also recognized that the plan carried many uncertainties. At that moment, his attention shifted as he heard a voice. Turning toward the sound, he saw Hwa shouting loudly, desperately calling out for Tang Wu. She was visibly frightened. In her mind, she questioned what her grandfather was planning. As her eyes moved, she suddenly noticed Sasam. She recognized him immediately and felt a sudden wave of shyness. Gathering herself, she greeted him. The two stood side by side, wrapped in an awkward silence. Hwa felt extremely shy and thought to herself how awkward the situation was, especially since it was impossible to know what he was thinking. After a moment, she finally broke the silence. Though still shy, she thanked him for saving her, clarifying that he should not misunderstand her intentions, and explaining that she simply felt that if she did not say it now, she might never get another chance. Upon hearing this, Sasam responded with a cold, piercing glare. The narrative then transitioned to another riverside location, where the leader of another clan stood observing the water. Soon, he noticed Hyouk approaching him. The leader addressed him as Shifting Shadow, then corrected himself, calling him Du Hyouk, and demanded to hear what excuses he had. Hyouk chuckled lightly and remarked that the leader spoke as if he had failed. The leader responded sharply, pointing out that all four shadows had died without achieving any results, and emphasized that Hyouk's mere presence there meant the first plan had already failed. However, Hyouk smirked confidently, adjusting his hair as he dismissed the claim. He explained that the core of the first plan was for him to become the hero of the Orthodox faction, and that simply being there did not mean he could not still become that hero. As he spoke, his smirk deepened, his veins becoming visible, and his expression turned sinister. His body began to transform, shifting into the form of a voluptuous woman. With a low chuckle, he covered his cleavage slightly and asked what the leader thought of this new appearance. He implied that with such a look, he would not even need a witness like Namgung Hai, and that it would naturally lead to becoming Namgung's heir. The leader, surprised, questioned whether that appearance was truly Namgung Hai. Then suddenly, he burst into uncontrollable laughter, calling Hyouk crazy and admitting that this development changed everything. He commented on her reputation as the #1 beauty of Anhui, acknowledging her beauty, but then added with a twisted grin that even knowing she was a man, it still stirred something in him. Angered by this reaction, Hyouk lashed out, calling him a pervert. The leader, however, only grinned wider, stating that it did not matter whether one was a man or a woman, as long as it looked good and was enjoyable. Their tension escalated, and they prepared to clash. But at that moment, a bird arrived carrying a letter for the leader. Hyouk recognized it as being from Water Shadow. The leader read the message and realized that the ship had already sailed. Understanding the urgency, the leader stated that he would have to move as well, and asked what Hyouk intended to do. Hyouk replied with a smile that he would follow that path. The leader questioned whether he was going to meet Water Shadow, suggesting instead that the Namgung clan's situation seemed far more interesting. Hyouk, however, hinted that something even more interesting was present there. The leader speculated about Tang Hwa, dismissing the idea by stating that even as one of the Great Ten, a single person could not outweigh the power of the entire Namgung clan. Then suddenly, realization struck him. Shocked, he shouted, questioning whether it could be that individual, the one he referred to as a pest. He demanded to know if Hyouk had found him and asked who he was. Hyouk simply smiled and denied it, addressing him mockingly as Ashido. Without another word, Hyouk turned and left. The leader attempted to stop him, but he failed. The scene then flowed into the final sequence, where the Namgung clan had already departed. Numerous ships sailed together, creating a grand and imposing sight across the water. From a distance, someone observed them through a telescope. That person quickly went to report to the chief of the 18 Ways of the Yangtze River Fortress, confirming that the ships had indeed set sail. Hearing this, the chief gave the order to set sail as well, declaring that they were going for a boat trip. The scene opens with a tense stillness on the open sea, where a ship cuts through the quiet waters under an uneasy sky. On the outer balcony of the ship, Tang stands firmly, his posture rigid and alert, while behind him stands Sasam, silently observing everything. On the other side, the clan members and HWA remain present. Equally cautious, Sasam's eyes move constantly, scanning the surroundings as he notices that several other ships are advancing ahead of them in the same direction. His attention repeatedly drifts back to Tang, carefully studying him, and a heavy realization begins forming in his mind. No matter how peerless of an expert Tang Wu is, Sasam concludes that at this moment, those two beside him are nothing but dead weight in Tang's eyes. He considers the harsh reality of survival and imagines a situation of life and death. In that moment of calculation, he evaluates the odds among Tang Hwa, Namgung Hai, and himself, estimating percentages in cold precision. 38% for Tang Hwa, another share for Namgung Hai, and then himself, Tang Sam. If Tang were ever forced to abandon one of them, Sasam is certain that it would undoubtedly be him. Accepting this grim possibility, he silently prepares himself in advance for what may come. The silence surrounding the ships grows heavier, and Tang eventually voices his concern to Hwa. Noting that everything feels too quiet, he reflects that they have not encountered a single enemy along the way, which feels unnatural. Considering the scale of influence required to besiege the Namgung clan, it would only be normal for enemies to appear somewhere along their path as well. This absence of resistance troubles him deeply. Acting on his instincts, Tang orders that the speed of the ships be reduced as much as possible, just in case danger is lurking nearby. As the fleet continues forward at a slower pace, the atmosphere shifts among the Namgung clan members. Many of them appear visibly anxious, their unease growing with each passing moment. Suddenly, someone spots lights in the distance. The discovery sparks curiosity, and people begin moving forward to get a clearer look. As they approach and observe more closely, they see numerous ships coming toward them from the front. The sight fills them with overwhelming relief and joy. Voices erupt across the ships as people shout excitedly that reinforcements have appeared. They believe the Namgung clan's message must have been received, and salvation has finally arrived. The cries of relief echo loudly, and some individuals are so overcome with emotion that they begin to weep. Hope spreads rapidly through the fleet, replacing fear with celebration. However, Tang remains unconvinced. Something about the approaching ships feels strange to him. Their size and formation appear unusual, and he begins to question whether these are truly allies. He recalls the 18 waterway strongholds of the Yangtze River, and wonders if they have indeed come to help, just as Byok had suggested. Yet as he continues observing carefully, a chilling realization sets in. Sweat begins to form on his face as doubt turns into suspicion. He notices that there are far too many ships, and their positioning seems unnatural, almost as if they are deliberately blocking the path ahead. The earlier absence of enemies now feels like a calculated setup. What once seemed like salvation now appears to be a trap closing in around them. The moment clarity strikes, Tang reacts immediately. He begins shouting warnings to everyone, repeatedly insisting that those ships are not reinforcements. He urges them to turn the ships around at once, emphasizing the urgency of escape. His voice carries desperation as he declares that those approaching forces are enemies, and they must retreat immediately to survive. Before any proper response can be organized, the situation escalates rapidly. From the opposing ships, pirates issue commands to attack, ordering their men to fire upon the Namgung clan's vessels. Instantly, chaos erupts as countless fiery projectiles fill the sky. Flames rain down upon the ships, creating a terrifying spectacle of destruction. Tang activates his mana, attempting to counter the assault, but the overwhelming barrage proves too much. Fireballs crash into the ships, striking the Namgung clan members directly, echo across the burning vessels as people begin to fall one after another. The ships themselves catch fire, engulfed in flames that spread uncontrollably. Sasam watches in shock as everything descends into chaos, while Tang's immense power proves insufficient against the scale of the attack. Amid the destruction, Tang struggles to maintain order. He shouts for everyone to pull themselves together and urgently commands them to reverse the ships. Before he can finish, Hwa calls out to him in panic, asking what they should do as they are being flanked from both the front and the rear. Faced with the dire situation, Tang curses in frustration and quickly changes strategy. He orders the ships to move toward the side, deciding that they must head for the shore instead. He urges everyone to hurry and move the survivors in that direction, hoping to salvage what little remains. As they attempt to escape, the ships begin to break apart under the relentless assault. The structural damage becomes too severe, and pieces of the vessels start collapsing into the burning sea. At the same time, enemy fighters leap onto the damaged ships, Their leader issues a ruthless command to kill them all and erase the Namgung clan completely. What follows is a brutal massacre, as the attackers slaughter the clan members mercilessly. The violence intensifies, fueling Tang's anger even further. In the midst of the chaos, Tang makes a decisive move. He knocks the Namgung clan's daughter unconscious and lifts her onto his shoulder. HWA, shocked by his actions, questions what he is doing. Tang responds firmly that they must reach the shore. HWA hesitates, pointing out that even for him, carrying all three of them would be too much. Tang corrects her, stating that it will not be 3, but only 2. This statement leaves HWA stunned as she realizes what he means. She asks about Sosum, unable to hide her concern. Turning toward Sosum, Tang reveals the truth. He admits that he had been greedy for Sosum's talent and had planted a goo within him to control him for the benefit of the Tang clan. He acknowledges that he has grown old, reflecting on his own decisions. Despite everything, he confesses that he has grown attached, even if Sosum was nothing more than a tool in his eyes. He declares that he will not kill Sosum, but he will not save him either. This cold decision leaves HWA in shock, but she remains silent, unable to oppose her grandfather. Lowering her head in sadness, she accepts the outcome without protest. Without further delay, Tang begins moving toward the shore with HWA and the unconscious princess. Though HWA wishes to stay behind for Sosum, she cannot bring herself to defy Tang and is forced to leave with him. As Tang departs, he addresses Sosum one last time, acknowledging him as a member of the Tang clan. He admits that the clan itself may never even know of Sosum's existence, but he personally will remember him as the soul-chasing poison hand. With that, he turns away and leaves the ship behind. HWA follows him, her heart heavy with sorrow. Unable to look back, once they are gone, Sosum stands alone amidst the destruction. In the silence that follows, he reflects briefly, noting that now there are no eyes watching him. With that thought, he prepares to begin. At that moment, an enemy approaches from behind, attempting to strike Sosum with a sword. However, Sosum is already prepared. He activates his power instantly, rendering the attack useless. In a swift counter, he slashes the attacker's throat, severing it cleanly. Without hesitation, Sosum drags the lifeless body away. Meanwhile, on the other ships, the enemies continue their slaughter, ensuring that no survivors remain. They declare that anyone still alive must be killed, leaving no one behind. From the darkness, Sosum emerges once again, covered in the aftermath of battle. His appearance leads the enemies to believe that he is one of them. One of the men approaches him, casually asking if he is all right, noting that he looks like a mess. In response, Sosum simply grins widely, assuring them that he is completely fine. The ships of the Namgung clan were engulfed in flames, burning across the river as chaos unfolded. A few surviving members, having barely escaped the enemy's assault, struggled to swim away, their faces filled with fear and their bodies trembling. Broken fragments of their ships floated scattered across the water, painting a scene of total destruction. Amidst this devastation, Tang Wu moved swiftly, carrying Namgung high over his shoulder, while leaping across the chaos toward the other side. His granddaughter followed closely with him, keeping pace despite the danger. As Tang Wu witnessed the clan's ships being completely destroyed and drifting apart in the river, he clenched his teeth in anger. A surge of realization and fury filled his thoughts as he recognized the involvement of the Heavenly Demon Castle and the possibility that their forces had been hidden on land. Meanwhile, the enemy forces continued their assault, mercilessly killing the remaining members of the Namgung clan who had not yet escaped. Tang Wu finally reached the riverbank, still carrying Namgung High and HWA with him. Soon after, a few other survivors managed to swim to safety and joined them. They were all utterly exhausted, breathing heavily as they tried to recover from the ordeal. Without wasting any time, Tang Wu urged everyone forward, and the group quickly began to move ahead together, leaving the burning wreckage behind. On the other side, Sosum was aboard Namgung's ships, completely surrounded by chaos and destruction. The enemy group mistakenly believed Sosum to be one of their own allies. They had no idea that Sosum was actually standing over the corpse of one of their comrades, having already killed him and taken his place without anyone noticing. At that moment, a system window appeared before Sosum, notifying him of a significant progression. It displayed a first-class advancement quest titled Vagabondy. Marked as a tester-exclusive class, the objective was clear and ruthless: kill 100 enemies who were level 10 or higher. The current quest completion stood at 18 out of 100. Sosum, internally reacting to this update, questioned how the count had reached 18. He wondered whether any of the enemies he had just killed even met the required conditions for the quest. His thoughts lingered on the uncertainty of the system's calculation, even as the battlefield around him remained drenched in blood. Just then, a member of the enemy group approached Sosum and handed him a piece of cloth, urging him to at least cover his face. The man pointed out that Sosum had no idea what he currently looked like. Sosum's face was completely soaked in blood, and his eyes glowed with a terrifying crimson hue, radiating a deadly aura. Without resistance, Sosum took the cloth and wrapped it around his face, calmly acknowledging that the suggestion made sense. At that same moment, the vice stronghold leader of the enemy group arrived on the scene. As he casually stroked his mustache, he observed the carnage and remarked that the place had been turned into a complete bloodbath. His presence immediately caused tension among the group. Several members nervously acknowledged his arrival, stammering as they questioned why he had come personally. The vice leader, maintaining his composed demeanor, asked about the situation. One of the men reported that they had killed everyone on the ships, but Tang Wu, along with a few experts and the remaining survivors, had managed to escape to the shore. Hearing this, the vice leader scratched his head slightly and concluded that he would need to report this development to the stronghold leader. He instructed everyone to wait for further orders. The group immediately bowed their heads in obedience, affirming his command without hesitation. Meanwhile, Sosum silently fixed his gaze on the vice leader, his deathly stare filled with cold intent and calculation. Soon after, the Stronghold clan's ships began moving forward, leaving behind the burned and destroyed vessels of the Namgung clan. The aftermath of the battle remained visible in the smoldering wreckage, emphasizing the scale of destruction. On another ship, a dangerous and masculine woman addressed the vice leader, calling him Shifting Shadow and pointing out his lateness. The vice leader responded with mild curiosity, asking whether she had already known of his arrival. She explained that she had received word from Ash Shadow in advance. She then commented on his ever-present smile, noting that regardless of whether he appeared as a man or a woman, that expression never changed. The vice leader, once again stroking his mustache, acknowledged her observation and stated that he would keep it in mind. The conversation shifted towards strategy, as he asked what their plan was regarding Tang Wu. The woman, with a confident grin, revealed that they were driving Tang Wu towards Xianzheng Mountain as planned. She declared that the location would ultimately become his tomb. The vice leader responded with interest, describing Xianzheng Mountain as a place that was half mountain and half valley. He elaborated that Tang Wu would inevitably be cornered at the edge of a cliff. Trapped with no escape, in his view, Tang Wu was likely climbing as fast as he could, completely unaware that he was heading straight toward his own grave. The woman then instructed everyone to prepare, stating that they would soon depart with the remaining forces. As the vice leader began to leave, he reflected on the upcoming confrontation, mentioning that one of the 10 greats would be facing 2 shadows, possibly even 3. However, he dismissed the uncertainty, stating that certainty was always better. Before departing, he addressed the woman again, asking whether she had seen a strange individual, someone with pitch-black eyes, or perhaps an expert whose martial arts emitted light. She responded that she had not encountered anyone fitting that description. The vice leader then fell into thought, noting that all 4 directions had been completely blocked, yet this mysterious individual had vanished without a trace. He concluded with a sinister grin, implying that if necessary, a massacre could resolve such mysteries. Meanwhile, on the other side, Tang Wu, along with HWA, Hai, the Namgung clan leader, and several remaining members, fled through the jungle. They moved in scattered groups, trying to avoid detection while navigating the dangerous terrain. However, enemy forces soon appeared again. Launching another attack, Tang Wu responded swiftly, using his poisonous needles to eliminate the attackers with precision. The Namgung clan members, despite their exhaustion, united and fought alongside him, managing to defeat the enemies together. Afterward, they continued moving forward, but it was evident that everyone was terrified, exhausted, and on the brink of collapse. Tang Wu insisted that they keep moving, pushing forward despite their condition. The Namgung clan leader, however, observed the dire state of his people. Seeing that they could no longer continue, he ordered a brief rest. The group sat down, breathing heavily, their bodies shaking from fatigue. They were starving, thirsty, and completely drained of energy. As he sat down himself, the leader reflected on their situation. He realized that only half of the Black Crow unit remained, or perhaps even fewer. He noted that Danri Hui, who was supposed to join them, had disappeared without a trace. He acknowledged that the slim chances of survival were not just his own concern, but applied to everyone present, with survival probability seemingly at only 15%. He understood that even the continued existence of the Black Crow unit was no longer guaranteed. He concluded that they needed to return to the Danri clan as quickly as possible. Suddenly, the leader heard a faint sound coming from the bushes nearby. Instantly alert, he sensed danger. He ordered the Black Crow unit members to prepare for combat, reacting immediately to the threat. As they advanced cautiously, the leader demanded that whoever was hiding reveal themselves. In response, enemy pirates emerged from the bushes. Stepping into view, among them, Sosum was present, disguised and blending in seamlessly with the group. The sight of the pirates filled the Namgung clan members with terror. Their already weakened state made the situation even more dire. At the same time, Sosum had a separate plan forming in his mind. His intention was to ensure the safety of the Namgung clan while maintaining his disguise. With a subtle grin hidden beneath the cloth covering his face, he anticipated what was about to unfold. He thought to himself that the real fun was about to begin, his blood-red eyes darkening with intensity as the moment approached. Enemy pirates and the men of the Namgung clan stood facing each other, fully prepared for war, their killing intent saturating the air like a suffocating storm. The enemy forces wore vicious grins, their bloodlust unmistakable, as they resolved to spare no one and slaughter every opponent without mercy. Opposite them, the warriors of the Namgung clan stood firm, equally resolute, their determination unshaken as they prepared to strike. They rallied their subordinates with fierce conviction, urging them to survive and vowing that every one of them would return alive to the Danbu clan. With that shared determination burning on both sides, the war erupted. The battlefield descended instantly into chaos, a violent frenzy where blades clashed and bodies collided. Warriors cut each other down without hesitation. Throats were sliced open, limbs severed, and bodies torn apart in a savage, merciless display. The enemy forces butchered the Namgung clan members with relentless brutality, their actions drenched in cruelty and blood. Amid this carnage, Sosum moved like a shadow, disguised among the enemy pirates and blending seamlessly into their ranks. Without warning, he surged forward at full speed, his presence erupting into action as he targeted the clan's leader. Their clash ignited a powerful surge of energy, a vivid blue aura bursting from their bodies as their attacks collided. The leader immediately felt the strain, his body trembling under the pressure as he realized he had already reached his limit. A sense of urgency gripped him, forcing him to conclude that the battle must end quickly, regardless of the cost. Driven by that desperation, the leader activated the 10 styles of the single current sword, unleashing the technique known as the 10 consecutive swords of the flying sword. In that precise moment, Sosum perceived the pattern, his awareness sharpening as he realized he could now see through the leader's sword. The clan leader lunged forward, dismissing the situation as nothing more than a trivial trick, and struck decisively at Sosum. Their weapons collided again, and both fighters sustained cuts along their arms, the pain fueling their intensity. In response, Sosum activated the 3 powers sword technique, his movements sharpening as he prepared to counter with calculated precision. The leader clenched his teeth and charged forward once more without hesitation. Using distraction as his weapon, he thrust his blade toward what he believed was Sosum's neck, convinced that Sosum had been caught off guard. Yet in the instant after the strike, something felt wrong, an unsettling realization creeping into his senses. Before him unfolded a shocking sight. Instead of Sosum, his blade had pierced the neck and throat of another enemy pirate. That man had been positioned near Sosum's shoulder, while Sosum himself stood completely unharmed. The leader was left stunned, his mind unable to grasp what had just occurred. His certainty shattered in an instant. He had been convinced his strike was flawless. In contrast, Sosum revealed the principle guiding him, recalling the belief that in a duel to the death between martial artists, the one who conceals the most gains the greatest advantage. The leader, still shaken, questioned whether all his preparation had amounted to nothing more than a single sword strike. As he stared into Sosum's eyes, an eerie sense of familiarity emerged, as though those eyes belonged to someone from his past. In the next moment, Sosum drew numerous daggers seemingly from within himself, unleashing them in a sudden barrage toward the leader. The leader struggled desperately to evade, his instincts screaming in recognition. For some time, Sosum had been summoning weapons as if from empty air, a phenomenon the leader could not comprehend, leaving him to wonder what kind of sorcery he faced. Sasam shifted positions fluidly, avoiding injury entirely, his movements ghost-like and elusive. Suddenly, another enemy fighter attacked the leader from behind. Seizing the opportunity to strike, the leader realized he was being attacked from both front and back simultaneously, leaving him trapped with no means of escape. Fear surged through him as he braced for death. Blood splattered violently across the battlefield, yet the leader remained untouched. To his astonishment, Sasam had intervened, killing the attacker in an instant and warning others not to interfere with his hunt. The leader stared at Sasam repeatedly, his thoughts racing until recognition finally surfaced. The truth became undeniable as he realized Sasam's identity. Overcome with fury, the leader screamed Sasam's name and charged forward, cursing him as a wretched being. He attacked again with rage, but Sasam blocked effortlessly, his composure unshaken. Consumed by anger, the leader demanded to know when the deception had begun. Accusing Sasam of cheating him, Gidihio. Their eyes locked, both filled with overwhelming killing intent. The leader's eyes burned with a glowing blue aura, while Sasam's turned a deep, ominous blood red. Their swords clashed repeatedly, each strike echoing with intensity, as the leader accused him of being a demonic, ghost-like deceiver. He further blamed Sasam for the suicidal plague of Bingyang, his accusations fueled by desperation and hatred. The clash continued relentlessly until Sasam stepped back, creating distance with controlled precision. The leader leapt into the air and attacked once more, mocking Sasam as someone who had once been nothing more than a stable cleaner within the clan. He moved unpredictably, his attacks slithering from different angles like a snake, attempting to confuse and overwhelm his opponent. Despite the relentless, unyielding barrage, Sasam maintained complete and unwavering control. In a swift, decisive moment, he countered with precise timing and severed the leader's arm cleanly. The leader stood utterly frozen in shock and terror, unable to accept his crushing defeat, his mind desperately struggling to comprehend how a proud member of the Danri clan could fall in such a humiliating and unimaginable manner. Sasam stood calmly and composed, his sword steady and unwavering in his firm grasp, his presence radiating an overwhelming aura of quiet dominance and authority. He reaffirmed his earlier principle with cold certainty, emphasizing once again that the one who conceals the most always holds the ultimate and undeniable advantage. Elsewhere on the blood-soaked battlefield, the carnage had finally reached its brutal and merciless conclusion. The remaining enemies had been ruthlessly slaughtered, leaving only a handful of severely wounded survivors barely clinging to life. Those who remained grew increasingly desperate and restless, anxiously wondering when reinforcements would finally arrive to save them. Sasam slowly shifted his sharp gaze toward them, recalling a lingering and unsettling thought that the reinforcements had stopped coming at some point during the battle. A creeping sense of unease settled deep within him, as he realized there must be a hidden reason behind this strange absence, prompting him to consider investigating the situation further with caution. Soon after, what appeared to be long-awaited reinforcements finally emerged from the distance. One of the surviving men expressed visible relief and excitement, believing that help had at last arrived to turn the tide. He mocked their usual delay with bitter sarcasm, remarking that those in higher positions were always slow, careless, and consistently disappointing in times of need. Yet something felt disturbingly wrong. He noticed their strange and unnatural appearance, confusion and suspicion creeping in, as he questioned why their clothing was bizarrely worn backwards. Unease quickly spread among the survivors as he nervously addressed the fortress boss, demanding an explanation for the delay and the unsettling attire of the so-called reinforcements. In a sudden, almost invisible blur of motion, the muscular woman from earlier appeared right beside him with terrifying and inhuman speed. Without a single moment of hesitation, she executed him flawlessly, decapitating him in one swift, brutal motion. His severed head soared violently through the air before crashing onto the ground with a sickening thud, the gruesome and horrifying spectacle leaving everyone completely frozen in shock and dread. The muscular woman's grin slowly twisted into something far more ominous, sinister and ruthlessly cruel. With chilling authority and absolute dominance, she issued a command to her subordinates, ordering them to mercilessly kill everyone present and leave not a single soul alive. The chaos spreading across the mountain grew even worse as the forces led by Water Shadow suddenly betrayed their own allies without warning. Warriors who had been fighting side by side only moments earlier were completely unprepared for the sudden slaughter. Sharp blades flashed through the darkness, tearing into friendly ranks before anyone could even understand what was happening. Confusion and terror exploded across the battlefield in an instant. Several soldiers fell screaming onto the blood-soaked ground, unable to believe they were being killed by the very people they trusted. One man collapsed in panic, desperately trying to understand the reason behind the betrayal. Another soldier froze during the massacre, unable to continue attacking his own comrades any longer. Fear and guilt overwhelmed him, and his hesitation sealed his fate immediately. Without the slightest trace of mercy, Water Shadow appeared behind him like a ghost emerging from the darkness. Her strike came so fast that the man never had a chance to react. His body was split apart instantly, blood spraying across the battlefield while the surrounding soldiers watched in horror. The brutal execution became a terrifying warning to everyone else. Any hesitation meant death. The remaining soldiers were completely consumed by fear. Loyalty vanished from their minds as survival became the only thing that mattered. Driven by terror, they resumed killing one another mercilessly, turning the mountain into a nightmare of chaos and bloodshed. Some soldiers even began trembling while swinging their weapons, their minds already broken by fear. Others tried avoiding eye contact with their former comrades as they carried out the slaughter. The sounds of steel clashing together mixed with desperate screams echoed endlessly through the forest. Bodies quickly piled across the battlefield, staining the earth beneath them dark red. The cold mountain wind carried the heavy scent of blood through the trees, making the atmosphere even more suffocating. Water Shadow herself personally ended the life of the final survivor, ensuring that nobody remained alive. Hidden behind a massive rock nearby, Sosum silently witnessed the entire massacre unfold before his eyes. The moment the killing stopped, he moved immediately without wasting a second. Using the confusion as cover, he dashed deeper into the forest at full speed, while the enemy forces continued spreading across the mountain like hunters tightening a deadly trap around their prey. For a brief moment, Sosum concealed himself behind a tree and listened carefully as enemy soldiers shouted orders through the forest. The command was absolute. Nobody was allowed to escape alive. Hearing this, Sosum instantly realized the horrifying truth. The entire mountain had already been surrounded. This was no ordinary pursuit anymore. It was a complete extermination hunt. As he continued moving through the dense forest, the realization settled heavily in his mind. The enemy was not only killing outsiders, but also eliminating their own pirates and allies without hesitation. Anyone inside the mountain had become disposable. For the first time, Sosum clearly understood that he was now the hunted prey trapped inside an enormous killing ground. While advancing deeper through the forest, Sosum suddenly discovered a small group of enemy soldiers resting ahead. Without slowing down, he launched an immediate attack. The startled soldiers barely had enough time to react before Sosum transformed his weapon back into the deadly whipsword. The flexible blade sliced through the air with terrifying precision, sweeping across the group in a single devastating strike. Every soldier was killed instantly before they could even defend themselves. After landing lightly on the ground, Sosum calmly checked his status window. His next level up was approaching rapidly after the continuous battles. At that same moment, another enemy squad appeared in the distance while shouting warnings to nearby troops. Sosum carefully observed them, and an idea slowly began forming in his mind. Perhaps the enemy forces themselves could become useful in creating an opportunity to escape. Elsewhere on the mountain, Tang Wu and the remaining survivors had just finished eliminating another enemy unit. Exhaustion covered every face as everyone struggled to catch their breath after endless fighting. Tang Hua soon noticed something deeply unsettling about the enemy's movements and quietly mentioned it to her grandfather. Tang Wu immediately sensed the same thing. The enemy was deliberately driving all survivors toward the mountain peak. Before the group could discuss the matter further, one of the survivors suddenly rushed toward Tang Wu in complete panic, urgently insisting that everyone needed to see something immediately. The survivors quickly followed him through the thick forest until they finally reached the edge of the mountain. The moment they emerged from the trees, despair spread across every face. A massive cliff blocked the entire path ahead. The survivors froze in shock as hopelessness consumed the atmosphere. One man collapsed to the ground in despair, unable to see any possible escape route. Others muttered that everything was already over. Panic rapidly spread among the group as fear broke their remaining courage. Some regretted ever coming to the mountain in the first place, never imagining that a celebration would turn into a massacre. Hearing the hopeless cries around him, Tang Wu finally exploded with fury. Even in such a desperate situation, he refused to surrender. His anger silenced the terrified survivors as he reminded them that he himself had not given up despite his age and injuries. If death was unavoidable, then the only option left was to fight until the very end and kill every enemy climbing toward them. The survivors immediately lowered their heads in shame and forced themselves to regain composure under Tang Wu's overwhelming presence. At that moment, another group suddenly emerged from the forest nearby. Tang Wu and Tang Hua instantly prepared themselves for battle, assuming more enemies had arrived. However, before either side attacked, one of the newcomers quickly raised his hands to signal that they meant no harm. Hidden quietly among the group was So-sam. The newcomers hurriedly explained that they too had been betrayed and attacked by the stronghold leader's forces. According to their story, the enemy army had suddenly turned against its own allies, forcing them to flee for survival. Tang Wu narrowed his eyes as he listened carefully. If internal conflict had truly broken out among the enemy forces, then this chaos might become their only chance to break through the encirclement and escape down the mountain. Without hesitation, Tang Wu ordered everyone to prepare to descend immediately before the enemy completely sealed every route. But before anyone could move, a loud voice echoed through the forest. The laughter alone was enough to freeze the atmosphere. Everyone immediately turned toward the source of the sound in shock as Water Shadow slowly stepped out from the shadows alongside Shifting Shadow and an enormous army of enemy soldiers. Their appearance instantly crushed the fragile hope the survivors had just regained. Shifting Shadow calmly walked forward while mocking Tang Wu for desperately fleeing across the mountain only to trap himself at a dead end like a helpless rat cornered inside a sealed container. Furious, Tang Wu demanded to know the true identity hidden behind the deception. In response, Shifting Shadow slowly transformed back into the appearance of Du Hioke. The moment Tang Wu saw that familiar face again, overwhelming rage exploded inside him instantly. Meanwhile, Water Shadow grew impatient and urged Shifting Shadow to stop wasting time and finish dealing with the soul-chasing poison hand. However, Shifting Shadow remained completely relaxed. In his eyes, Tang Wu was already destined to die, so there was no need to rush anything. More importantly, there was still one particular person he had not seen yet. Shifting Shadow then turned his attention toward Tang Wu and calmly asked about the worthless trash Tang Wu had been carrying around earlier, clearly referring to So-sam. So-sam quickly realized that the enemy had most likely been searching for him all along. The reckless decision to kill even their own allies no longer felt strange to him. After witnessing the flash of light that night, he became certain that his intervention had completely destroyed their plans. From the enemy's perspective, he had become someone who absolutely needed to be hunted down and killed. Instead of fear, that realization filled him with excitement and delight. At the same time, Shifting Shadow remained convinced that an expert capable of unleashing such a terrifying flash of light could never have died so easily. He carefully observed the surroundings and became certain that So-sam was still nearby somewhere. His patience finally snapped, and he angrily shouted into the darkness, demanding that So-sam reveal himself immediately. He reminded him that they were destined to meet again, and his voice echoed violently through the battlefield as he threatened him while counting down. Before anyone could react further, So-sam suddenly appeared like a streak of lightning. Moving at overwhelming speed, he swung his sword through the battlefield. In a single instant, the throats and bodies of Shifting Shadow's subordinates were sliced apart. Blood scattered everywhere before their corpses even collapsed to the ground. Instead of panicking, Shifting Shadow laughed in satisfaction after finally confirming So-sam's presence. At that moment, a system window appeared before So-sam, displaying his current stats and ability values. Almost immediately afterward, an intense burst of light exploded around him. The brightness swallowed his figure entirely, and So-sam vanished from sight. Shifting Shadow narrowed his eyes in confusion, unsure whether So-sam had truly disappeared or not. For only a fleeting instant, he thought he had seen a shadow hidden within the light itself. His gaze quickly shifted toward the massive cliff nearby. He realized that not even he or Tang Wu would survive a jump from such a terrifying height without being torn apart upon landing. The possibility of suicide crossed his mind, yet another thought lingered uneasily in his head. As tension filled the air, Hai still remained unconscious nearby. The disappearance of So-sam left Shifting Shadow deeply irritated. However, his frustration soon twisted into a cruel grin as he turned his attention toward Tang Wu. Since So-sam had escaped, he decided to settle for Tang Wu instead. Moments later, Hai slowly regained consciousness. The moment she opened her eyes and saw Shifting Shadow standing before her, confusion and fear overwhelmed her. She struggled to understand why he was there and what exactly was happening. Shifting Shadow stared down at her mockingly and ridiculed her inability to grasp the situation unfolding around her. Tang Wu immediately sensed danger approaching and urgently warned both his granddaughter and Hai to fall back because the enemies were advancing toward them. Shifting Shadow smirked coldly before ordering all of his men to capture Tang Wu. Just as the enemies prepared to move, another figure suddenly arrived at the battlefield. The newcomer casually interrupted the tension while telling everyone to wait a moment. He stumbled forward with a crazed grin spread across his face. His entire body and clothing were soaked in blood. Yet he appeared completely delighted. He arrogantly declared that a feast should never begin without someone as great as himself being present. Tang Wu immediately felt immense pressure from the newcomer. The enemies they had already faced were all experts equal to the peak realm of their clan, yet now another terrifying monster of similar strength had appeared. Then Tang Wu's eyes suddenly widened in horror. The newcomer was carrying a severed head in his hand. The man laughed proudly and announced that he had even brought it. Without hesitation, he threw the severed head toward Hai. The moment Hai saw it, terror completely consumed her. It was the freshly severed head of the Namgung clan's patriarch, her own grandfather. The man loudly celebrated the horrifying sight as though it were entertainment. Everyone present became completely shaken with fear after witnessing the brutal display. Hai collapsed while holding her grandfather's severed head in her trembling hands, crying uncontrollably. Watching her despair only made the man laugh harder. He cruelly mocked the sight of the famous beauty of An Hui crying while embracing her dead grandfather. He admitted that seeing beautiful women broken and ruined was what excited him the most. To him, the entire tragedy was hilarious beyond measure. Then he looked around in confusion after noticing that nobody else was laughing alongside him. He wondered why the atmosphere had suddenly become so cold and questioned whether he was truly the only one enjoying the scene. Even Shifting Shadow and the muscular woman were disgusted by his behavior. Gritting their teeth, they labeled him a complete madman and declared that he was no longer human. The crazed man burst into laughter once again. He celebrated the destruction of the Namgung clan and proudly declared that Tang Wu would soon die by their hands as well. He boasted that they would soon possess the heads of two beyond peak realm experts. At the same time, he horrifyingly referred to the women as future wives he intended to claim for himself. Before anyone else could react, Tang Wu suddenly activated his power. In an instant, poisonous needles shot toward Hai and Tang Hua, piercing directly into their bodies. Tang Hua was shocked by her grandfather's actions and desperately questioned what he was doing. Tang Wu calmly explained that he had poured half of his remaining internal energy into the Dragon Phoenix golden needles. He admitted that the power was still not enough to safely guide them down the cliff. Their limbs could be permanently destroyed, and they might even become crippled for life. Despite those consequences, nothing mattered more to him than ensuring that the two of them survived. Shifting Shadow immediately realized Tang Wu's intentions and furiously shouted at him. Ignoring him completely, Tang Wu roared toward Tang Hua with all the strength he had left. He commanded her to survive no matter what happened to her body. Even if she became broken or ruined forever, she had to stay alive. He ordered her to one day return and repay this blood debt in his name. Blood tears streamed down Tang Wu's face as the needles activated completely. Using the force of the technique, Tang Hua and Hai were launched away from the battlefield and sent flying down the cliff below. The crazed man immediately exploded with anger after seeing them escape. He charged toward Tang Wu while screaming furiously about how Tang Wu had stolen his future wives away from him. At that same moment, Tang Wu unleashed his full power. An overwhelming aura erupted from his body so violently that even the attacking man was forced to stop and step backward in shock. The pressure suddenly felt monstrous and suffocating beyond belief. Tang Wu's voice became cold and terrifying as he called out directly to the heavenly demon castle. He declared that the only thing he still possessed was the hollow title of one of the 10 greats. From that moment onward, he, the soul-chasing poison hand, would personally reap their spirit essence. As his declaration echoed across the battlefield, an enormous demonic aura exploded from Tang Wu's body, completely overwhelming the... Meanwhile, the focus shifted to Sosum, who was still fighting the gang members while falling down the massive cliff. Even as he descended through the air, he continued cutting through the enemies effortlessly. One after another, the attackers were cleanly knocked out by his sword strikes. Despite being completely alone, he overwhelmed every single one of them without hesitation. While falling, Sosum drove his sword into the rocky wall of the cliff. The blade scraped against the stone as he used it to slow his descent and gradually climb downward. As he continued descending, he calculated the distance in his mind. He realized he had already descended nearly 500 meters. However, the remaining distance was still around 12 to 1,500 meters. He understood that climbing down a cliff like this was practically suicide. Even so, he believed his strengthened body, enhanced through leveling up, gave him a chance to survive. His confidence rose to 86% as he considered another desperate method. By using the corpses stored in his inventory as buffers to reduce the impact and slow his fall as much as possible, he concluded that surviving the descent would not be impossible. Suddenly, his sword slipped from the cliff wall and fell into the darkness below. Without panicking, Sosam immediately used his inventory technique. The dead gang members who had been falling beneath him still carried their weapons, and he quickly retrieved another sword from one of their corpses. Armed once again, he stabbed the new sword into the cliff wall and resumed his descent. This time, he used both the sword and the piled-up dead bodies beneath him, almost like a sliding platform, allowing him to glide downward more efficiently. While continuing the dangerous descent, he remained focused on the battlefield above. He realized that whether it was Tang Wu or the enemy forces, everyone would eventually end up at the bottom of the cliff. Determined to survive no matter what, Sosum resolved to somehow endure the descent and wait for the perfect opportunity. As Sosum continued downward, the scene smoothly shifted back to the top of the cliff, where Tang Wu was still fighting alone against the enemy group. The moment shadow shifting witnessed Tang Wu using his poison arts, he was immediately shocked. He had believed Tang Wu would not be able to use such dangerous techniques because of the people accompanying him. Yet at the very end, the stubborn old man had chosen to gamble even with his own granddaughter's life. Shadow shifting quickly realized what that decision truly meant. Tang Wu had already been pushed onto the defensive. Without wasting another second, Shadow shifting loudly ordered everyone to attack the soul-chasing poison hand. The entire enemy force immediately charged toward Tang Wu. Every fighter desperately wanted the glory of killing him personally. They shoved each other aside, screaming and fighting over who would land the final blow first, as the battlefield descended into chaos. At that moment, Tang Wu activated the terrifying technique known as the soul-dementing ghost poison hand. An overwhelming wave of toxic and poisonous energy exploded outward from his body. The sheer force of the poison instantly knocked the charging enemies backward before they could even get close to him. Their bodies began to deform and collapse under the horrifying toxicity. Shadow shifting desperately ordered his men to block the attack. But it was impossible. The poison aura was far too overwhelming and destructive. The entire surroundings began to rot and disintegrate beneath the poisonous energy. Trees withered and burned away. The ground itself split apart into massive cracks. Everything within the area was devastated by the toxic force. After the attack finally subsided, the destruction became fully visible. The entire area had been ruined. The trees had completely burned away, and the earth had been torn apart. Even the enemy side could not hide their shock. They realized Tang Wu was still capable of unleashing an attack at such a terrifying level. They admitted that if they had not taken the antidote beads beforehand, they truly might have melted alive within the poison. Among the enemy group, one man had suffered especially badly from the poisonous aura. His body had aged into the appearance of a frail old man due to the toxin's effects. Groaning in pain, he struggled to remain standing while leaning heavily on a stick for support. Confused and horrified, He questioned how the others were completely fine despite the poison. The muscular woman from the group casually threw something toward him. The moment it struck him, his body immediately returned to normal. Relief washed over him as he finally felt alive again. It became obvious that the others had secretly kept those antidote beads for themselves from the very beginning. Just then, the group suddenly heard desperate cries and groaning echoing through the battlefield. Someone was screaming for help while begging to be saved. The source of the screams was revealed moments later. Tang Wu had grabbed one of the enemy men directly by the face and was mercilessly killing him with his bare hand. After crushing the man to death, Tang Wu slowly lifted his head. A far more overwhelming poisonous aura erupted from his body. The toxic energy pouring from him became even denser and more horrifying than before. With an intense death glare fixed upon the remaining 3 enemies, Tang Wu coldly acknowledged the antidote bead they possessed. He understood that they had come fully prepared with the sole purpose of killing him. However, Tang Wu made one thing absolutely clear. The man standing before them was still Tang Wu, one of the 10 greats of the Murim. He refused to believe that something as insignificant as a mere antidote bead could ever stop someone like him. The moment those words reached them, all 3 enemies were completely terrified. Without giving the enemies even a moment to recover from their fear, Tang Wu immediately launched himself toward the remaining 3 at terrifying speed. His movements were so fast and aggressive that even shadow shifting was left shocked by how quickly the old master could still move, despite everything that had already happened. As Tang Wu closed the distance, he extended his hand forward and released a surge of poisonous toxic mana directly toward them. The deadly energy spread violently through the air, threatening to consume everything in its path. The muscular woman grew frustrated and instantly swung her massive blade toward Tang Wu while yelling at him to get out of her way. The sheer force behind her strike pushed Tang Wu backward as the impact disrupted the poisonous mana advancing toward them. The moment Tang Wu stepped back, the muscular woman grinned wildly. She proudly realized that she had successfully broken through his mana. However, her confidence lasted only for an instant. She suddenly noticed Tang Wu flicking several poisonous needles directly toward her. Before the needles could reach her, shadow shifting immediately intercepted them with incredible reflexes. Confidently catching the projectiles, he mocked Tang Wu, believing that a mere hidden weapon would never work against them. But the instant he grabbed them, both of them realized something was wrong. Those were not ordinary poisonous needles. They were explosion needles. A massive blast erupted directly between them. The violent explosion instantly sent both shadow shifting and the muscular woman flying backward through the air. Smoke and debris exploded outward as the shockwave tore across the battlefield. Before the dust could even settle, the 3rd member of their group suddenly leaped toward Tang Wu in rage. Charging directly at him, the man furiously called Tang Wu a crazy old man and demanded that he stop throwing hidden weapons like a coward. He challenged Tang Wu to fight him fairly and directly. At that moment, the man activated a technique called Shadowed Phantom Bloom. A powerful purple aura of energy burst outward from his body, surrounding him in violent spiritual power. In response, a green poisonous aura also began erupting from Tang Wu's body. The 2 overwhelming energies clashed against each other as the battlefield trembled beneath their pressure. Tang Wu coldly pointed out the hypocrisy of the situation. He questioned how fighting 3 against 1 could possibly be considered honorable or fair in the first place. Immediately afterward, Tang Wu unleashed another deadly attack. Countless flower-shaped poison bombs erupted all around the battlefield. One after another, the explosive poisonous flowers burst across the area, filling the surroundings with violent explosions and toxic smoke. The enemy man became increasingly frustrated while trying to push through the relentless attacks. Angrily, he admitted that the Tang clan truly lived up to their reputation for being unbelievably petty and underhanded in combat. In the middle of that chaos, Tang Wu suddenly moved. With perfect precision, he drove a poisonous needle directly into the man's foot. The enemy instantly froze in shock the moment the needle pierced him. Seeing the attack land successfully, Tang Wu smirked coldly and calmly declared that he had finally caught him. Tang Wu begins the assault by closing in on his opponent and quickly driving a poisonous needle into the man's leg. Using the force of the strike, he pulls the target toward himself while extending his other hand forward, preparing for a follow-up attack. The injured man immediately understands the danger and reacts instinctively, realizing he must block the incoming strike. He attempts to defend himself by raising his sword to intercept Tang Wu's attack, but the effort proves completely ineffective. The attack bypasses his defense, and in an instant, multiple poisonous needles are embedded deep into his entire body. The poison spreads rapidly, and his body begins to lose control. Panic sets in as he recognizes that he has been struck by a pressure point technique, leaving him unable to move at all, his limbs locking up under the effect of the strike. Taking advantage of the immobilized opponent, Tang Wu grabs the man by his hair and pulls him close, locking him in a terrifying stare filled with lethal intent. He coldly declares his intention to begin by destroying the eyes of the man for daring to look at Hua, his expression showing absolute ruthlessness and zero hesitation. Without wasting another moment, Tang Wu drives his hand forward and brutally gouges out both of the man's eyes. The man screams in unbearable agony as his vision is completely taken away. Before Tang Wu can finish the execution, a sudden attack comes from above in the form of a thunderstick technique. Tang Wu immediately reacts by shifting his position, in a shadow-like movement, narrowly avoiding the impact. Grinding his teeth, he realizes in shock that the attack is not a simple saber technique, but a far more advanced palm-based martial art. He understands that the true skill of his enemy has finally been revealed. At that moment, Shadow Shifting loudly calls out Tang Wu's name, while advancing toward him and unleashing a powerful technique known as the Thunderclap 100 Strikes Palm. Tang Wu responds instantly with his own technique, the delusional 6 acupoint blood hand. Both techniques collide with immense force, creating a violent shockwave between them. However, Tang Wu is gradually pushed backward by the overwhelming power of the opponent, leaving him shocked and struggling to maintain his stance as he realizes he is being overpowered. Shadow Shifting mockingly remarks that Tang Wu's internal energy appears to be running out, implying that his opponent is reaching his limit. Despite the taunting, both fighters continue their clash, and another heavy collision of their techniques sends shockwaves across the battlefield once again. Nearby, the subordinate who had previously lost one of his eyes due to Tang Wu's attack is consumed by rage and pain. He shouts in fury, unable to see properly, and lamenting his condition, describing how his eyes, once meant to admire beauty, have been destroyed. Overcome with hatred, he vows to drag Tang Wu down with him, and retaliates by throwing his sword toward him with full force. The blade strikes Tang Wu's abdomen, causing a deep wound and a spray of blood. At the same time, a muscular woman joins the attack, striking Tang Wu forcefully with her weapon and sending him flying backward. As Tang Wu crashes to the ground, the injured man continues screaming in rage, cursing Tang Wu for destroying his eyes and expressing a desire for immediate revenge against the old man responsible for his suffering. Shadow Shifting intervenes briefly, attempting to calm the situation and instructing them to wait. Despite their injuries and exhaustion, all three opponents remain focused on Tang Wu. They are shocked to see that, even after sustaining heavy damage, Tang Wu is still able to move and continue fighting. His endurance defies their expectations, and they struggle to comprehend how he is still functioning. Tang Wu suddenly launches forward again with full force, refusing to collapse. In response, the enemies also charge toward him for another clash. During the confrontation, Tang Wu uses hidden poisonous plants buried beneath the ground, triggering a surprise attack. The concealed traps activate, launching poisonous plant-based strikes that erupt beneath his opponents. The sudden explosions and eruptions of toxic flora throw them off balance, catching them completely off guard. Shadow Shifting reacts in shock, realizing that the ground itself had been rigged with hidden weapons. The realization that Tang Wu had been strategically planting traps throughout the battlefield unsettles the group. Despite the chaos, Tang Wu continues his coordinated assault, targeting the same weak points repeatedly and maximizing damage with precision. In a synchronized moment, all three opponents attempt to resist, shouting in frustration that Tang Wu's efforts are useless. However, Tang Wu blocks their combined attack with calculated precision. He then escalates his offensive by throwing explosive flower-based poison attacks toward them, resulting in a massive explosion that engulfs the area in fire and debris. Amid the smoke and destruction, Tang Wu recognizes that this is the decisive moment. He decides that he must eliminate Shadow Shifting immediately before the enemy has a chance to recover. With that determination, he charges forward at full speed, aiming directly for Shadow Shifting to deliver the finishing blow. However, before he can reach his target, the muscular woman intercepts him again, appearing directly in his path with a mocking smirk. She blocks his movement and prevents him from advancing, refusing to let him pass. In a sudden and brutal move, she bites down hard on Tang Wu's arm, causing intense pain that forces him to momentarily stagger and scream internally under the pressure of the attack. At the same time, shadow shifting begins to worry internally that continuous use of hidden weapons and unpredictable tactics is making the battle increasingly dangerous and chaotic for them. Tang Wu, however, realizes that shadow shifting may soon recover his composure, if not eliminated immediately. Understanding that this is his final opportunity, he resolves to end the fight at any cost. In a desperate decision, Tang Wu chooses to sacrifice his own arm. Enduring extreme pain, he forcefully tears his arm free from the muscular woman's bite, severing it in the process. Despite the severe injury and blood loss, he retains the severed arm and uses the opening created by this brutal sacrifice to move forward at extreme speed. With relentless determination, Tang Wu charges directly at shadow shifting, carrying his severed arm, and successfully drives him off the cliff, sending him plummeting downward. After accomplishing this decisive strike, Tang Wu turns his attention toward the remaining two enemies, the exhausted, eyeless subordinate still filled with rage, and the muscular woman who remains active but shaken by the sudden turn of events. Standing amidst the chaos, Tang Wu assesses the situation carefully, realizing that the battle is not yet fully over, and that both remaining opponents still need to be dealt with decisively. Tang Wu slowly advanced toward the muscular woman and her subordinate. His battered body trembled from exhaustion as a grim realization filled his mind. He had already run out of internal energy. Every hidden weapon he possessed had been used. Nothing remained at his disposal anymore. All that was left was his old, broken body. Despite his condition, Tang Wu suddenly launched himself forward and delivered a powerful punch directly at the muscular woman. At the same moment, she responded with an equally devastating punch of her own. The impact was tremendous. Blood burst from both of their mouths as their fists connected. The force pushed them backward, forcing both fighters to retreat several steps. Before either of them could recover, the other member of the enemy group, the man whose eye Tang Wu had previously gouged out, charged forward in fury. Consumed by rage and humiliation, he launched an attack on Tang Wu. He screamed angrily, unable to comprehend what he had just witnessed. He mocked Tang Wu's use of the lazy donkey roll technique and ridiculed him for relying on such a method. In his eyes, it was disgraceful. He could not understand how someone recognized as one of the 10 greats could fight in such a shameless manner. To him, Tang Wu had abandoned all honor. Tang Wu answered him with a terrifying death glare. His eyes burned with ruthless determination. Long ago, he had already thrown away the concept of honor. Survival had become far more important than pride. Without hesitation, Tang Wu unleashed a brutal kick. The attack struck the one-eyed man with tremendous force. His body was sent flying through the air before crashing directly into the muscular woman. Blood sprayed from his mouth upon impact. The muscular woman immediately gritted her teeth in irritation. Rather than helping her fallen ally, she grabbed him by the leg and violently slammed him into the ground. Her anger had reached the point where she no longer cared about his condition. Tang Wu watched the scene unfold and smirked with amusement. Even in the middle of a deadly battle, he found it entertaining that the woman was personally beating her own teammate. Still consumed by rage, the muscular woman continued assaulting the defeated man before finally throwing him aside. Tang Wu stood proudly and declared that he would never be defeated by the likes of them. He condemned them as cowards who lacked the resolve to face death. He condemned them as people who possessed neither the courage nor the determination to sacrifice anything meaningful. As his voice rose to a furious roar, Tang Wu grinned like a madman. His battered face was covered in blood, yet his spirit remained unbroken. At that moment, both Tang Wu and the muscular woman charged toward each other once again, with everything they had left. Every remaining ounce of strength, energy, and killing intent was poured into the clash. The battle continued relentlessly. Time passed. The fight raged on throughout the entire night. Eventually, dawn arrived. The sun slowly rose over the horizon, casting its light upon the battlefield. Drops of blood fell onto the ground. As the scene became visible in the morning light, the outcome was finally revealed. The muscular woman had been defeated. Blood dripped from her mouth as her exhausted body hung helplessly. Tang Wu stood victorious. Despite his countless injuries, he remained standing. His posture was firm and unwavering. He grabbed the defeated woman by her hair and held her in place. She no longer possessed the strength to resist him. The one-eyed man witnessed the scene and was overwhelmed by shock and terror. He could barely believe what he was seeing. Even with 3 shadows and more than 100 warriors supporting them, they had failed to kill a single wounded, one-handed old man. The reality seemed impossible. It felt completely absurd. yet the evidence stood directly before his eyes. Tang Wu slowly began walking toward him. Fear instantly consumed the one-eyed man. He screamed desperately and begged Tang Wu to stay away. He called Tang Wu a monster rather than a human being. Every step Tang Wu took only increased his terror. He desperately demanded that Tang Wu stop approaching him. At the same time, far below the cliff, a figure began climbing upward. However, the scene remained focused on Tang Wu and the terrified survivor. Tang Wu extended his hand toward the frightened man. The man became even more terrified. Tears formed in his eyes as he begged Tang Wu not to touch him. He repeatedly demanded that the old man stay away. Tang Wu mumbled something quietly. Because of his terrible injuries, his words were difficult to hear. His face was swollen. Several of his teeth had been broken. His condition was horrifying. The one-eyed man stared at him in confusion. He wondered whether Tang Wu had finally lost his mind. He could not understand how someone could continue moving after suffering such extreme injuries. Suddenly, Tang Wu attacked. The terrified man screamed once more. Just as the attack was about to land, a familiar figure appeared directly in front of Tang Wu. It was Hua. Tang Wu was completely shocked. He could not understand how his granddaughter had suddenly appeared there. A faint smirk formed on Hua's face. Then, without warning, she thrust her hand directly into Tang Wu's chest. Blood exploded from the wound. A massive amount of blood poured from both his chest and mouth. Some of it splattered across Hua's face. Then the truth was revealed. It was not Hua. The person standing there was actually Shifting Shadow, who had disguised himself as her. Shifting Shadow smirked in satisfaction. At last, he had finally caught Tang Wu. With tremendous force, Shifting Shadow threw Tang Wu away. The one-eyed man immediately recognized the newcomer. He shouted in disbelief. It was truly Shifting Shadow. Meanwhile, Shifting Shadow reflected on how close he had come to death. If Tang Wu's earlier punch had contained even a little more internal energy, he would never have been able to climb back up the cliff. He would have died instantly. A grin spread across Shifting Shadow's face. Now, however, victory belonged to them. Tang Wu had finally fallen. Hearing those words, the one-eyed man regained his confidence. His fear faded and was quickly replaced by mockery. He laughed at Tang Wu and called him an old fool. Moments earlier, he had genuinely believed that he was going to die. Now he began describing the horrific things he intended to do to Tang Wu. He vowed that Tang Wu would not be allowed to die peacefully. He planned to gouge out Tang Wu's eyes. He planned to sever his limbs. He planned to slit his throat at the very end. He even declared that he would climb down the cliff afterward and deal with the women waiting below. However, before he could finish speaking, he suddenly froze. His voice disappeared. His eyes widened in disbelief. Tang Wu was still moving. The old man's body trembled violently. Yet despite everything, he was still alive. Slowly, Tang Wu clenched his hand into a fist. Then he raised his thumb forward. The one-eyed man stared in shock. Even at the very end, Tang Wu still refused to surrender. Tang Wu's thoughts drifted inward. The technique he was about to use paled beyond comparison to the original version. It was incomplete. It was imperfect. Yet if this was truly where his life would end, then this imperfect version would have to be enough. Even if he had to burn away every last fragment of life remaining within him, he would still use it. At that moment, Tang Wu activated the heaven-shrouding petal rain. An overwhelming green aura erupted from his body. Immense energy exploded outward in every direction. The one-eyed man stared in complete horror. Tang Wu then charged toward his enemies with incredible speed. Before they could react, he grabbed the muscular woman, Shifting Shadow, and the one-eyed man. As he held all three of them together, Tang Wu revealed the final truth. The hidden weapons were exploding. An instant later, a massive explosion engulfed everyone. The battlefield vanished beneath a devastating blast. After the explosion, Tang Wu's body was thrown away. He began falling from the cliff. As he descended through the air, his thoughts turned toward Hua. He thought about his beloved granddaughter. He confessed that he had wanted to see her get married before his death. More than anything else, he wanted her to survive. Far below the cliff, another figure sat waiting. It was none other than So-Sam. As he looked upward, he immediately realized that Tang Wu was falling toward him. A slow smirk appeared on So-Sam's face. Then he bit his own finger. At long last, the moment he had been waiting for had finally arrived. Tang Wu was finally coming to him. At the bottom of the cliff, Tang Wu lay crumpled inside a deep pit. His condition was horrifying. A massive hole pierced through his chest. One of his arms had been completely severed, and his entire body was covered in wounds. He was barely clinging to life, existing somewhere between life and death. After a long moment, his eyes slowly opened. Every muscle in his body trembled uncontrollably as he struggled to regain awareness. He could barely feel his limbs. His breathing was weak, and death seemed only moments away. As he assessed his condition, a terrible realization struck him. His innate ki had completely dissipated. The power that had defined his strength was gone. Without it, he knew his remaining lifespan would be painfully short. Death was already reaching for him, suppressing the panic rising within him. Tang Wu forced himself to look around. The sight that greeted him made his eyes widen. Corpses were scattered throughout the pit. Many of them belonged to the fallen guests and pirates, who had been caught in the chaos above. Colorful butterflies fluttered around the dead bodies, creating a strangely beautiful contrast to the blood-soaked scene. Tang Wu quickly realized something disturbing. Those people had not died from the fall alone. Someone had deliberately finished them off after they landed. His gaze shifted forward. A figure was sitting calmly directly in front of him. The moment Tang Wu recognized the person, shock flashed across his face. It was Sosam. The young man sat quietly, as if he had been waiting there the entire time. His crimson eyes glowed ominously. A grin slowly spread across his face. Tang Wu's thoughts raced. The slaughtered martial artists at the bottom of the cliff, the blood-stained sword nearby, and Tang Sam sitting before him, as though he had been expecting Tang Wu's arrival. The pieces immediately connected. Tang Wu demanded to know who the person before him truly was. In response, Sosam's grin widened. He pulled out a knife and slowly approached. His eyes burned with anticipation, as he revealed that he had waited an extremely long time for this moment. Rage instantly erupted inside Tang Wu. He cursed Sosam, and reminded him that he had personally bestowed the Tang family name upon him. Now the same person dared to attempt killing Tang Wu himself. To Tang Wu, it was nothing less than a beast turning its fangs against its own master. He bitterly admitted that he should have killed Sosam back on the ship. Then he activated his final trump card. Tang Wu commanded the Go parasite to tear apart its host's body. Despite his horrific injuries, he began laughing. He reminded Sosam that the Gu was still inside him. Soon the parasite would shred his body apart from within. Blood would pour from all 7 orifices until death claimed him. For the first time, Sosam's expression darkened. Without showing fear, he stepped forward. The tip of his knife stopped only an inch away from Tang Wu's eye. Then he calmly revealed the truth. That bug had been removed a long time ago. Tang Wu's eyes widened in complete disbelief. The revelation shattered everything he thought he knew. Unable to comprehend what he had heard, his mind froze. At that moment, Sosam reflected upon the world around him. This place was a world filled with madmen, a world where martial artists learned killing arts known as martial arts, a world where the strong preyed upon the weak. Sometimes violence was justified under the banner of the orthodox factions. Sometimes it was justified under the banner of the unorthodox factions. Sometimes it was justified under the banner of the demonic factions. Regardless of the name, violence always remained the foundation of their justice. Strength was law. Power was order. The martial artists who ruled this world were like butterflies freely fluttering through the sky. Meanwhile, he had once been nothing more than a caterpillar crawling helplessly across the ground. But that reality had changed. In this world, he would personally kill Tang Wu. By doing so, he would become a butterfly himself. And after becoming one, he would once again become a hunter whose prey would be the beasts known as martial artists. Holding the knife directly before Tang Wu's eye, Sosam grinned and declared through his actions that Tang Wu was his greatest prey. Fear finally appeared within Tang Wu. He refused to accept reality. For a feared figure known as the soul-chasing poison hand, to be killed by a mere dog he had raised was something his pride could never tolerate. Desperation consumed him. He repeatedly denied the possibility. His scream echoed throughout the pit. But Sosam showed no mercy. With a sudden movement, he drove the knife directly into Tang Wu's eye. The blade pierced deep into his skull. Tang Wu died instantly. The moment the powerful martial artist perished, a massive explosion erupted. The energy contained within his body burst outward. Violent lightning surged through the area. The ground shook. Dust and debris exploded in every direction. For several moments, chaos engulfed the surroundings. Eventually, the destructive force faded. The dust slowly settled. Sunlight broke through the clearing sky. Golden rays descended upon Sosam's body. At that exact moment, a system notification appeared before him. Tang Wu's death had granted him an enormous amount of experience. His level instantly jumped from level 14 to level 24, a full 10-level increase. Sosam examined the result. Although 10 levels was a significant gain, he found himself slightly disappointed. Considering the terrifying reputation of the soul-chasing poison hand, he had expected even greater rewards. The amount felt lower than anticipated. After a brief moment of thought, he reached a conclusion. Tang Wu had already been on the verge of death before Sosum finished him off. His experience must have dispersed because of his condition. Looking at Tang Wu's corpse, Sosum remarked internally that the man was already a complete wreck. His attention then shifted back toward the battle above. The individuals capable of reducing Tang Wu to such a state were monsters. Even if he climbed back up now, he would stand no chance against them. And if they had already fled, tracking them down would be nearly impossible. Just then, another system window appeared. It displayed a special quest, the first-class advancement quest, Vagabond. It was a tester-exclusive class quest. The objective required him to kill 100 enemies who were level 10 or higher. The progress window appeared before him. 99 out of 100 targets had already been completed. Only one kill remained. Sosum smirked. As he pulled the knife from Tang Wu's eye, a thought surfaced. Tang Wu could not have fallen down here by himself. There had to be someone else nearby. He had not found her yet, but he was certain she was somewhere in the area. Only one more target remained before he could advance to the Vagabond class. The thought caused his grin to widen. As that realization settled in his mind, the scene naturally shifted deeper into the valley below the cliff. Not far away, Tang Wu's granddaughter Hua was also among the survivors. Like Tang Wu, she had fallen from the cliff. Unlike him, she had survived by sheer luck. However, her injuries were devastating. After an unknown amount of time, her eyes slowly opened. Confusion filled her mind. She struggled to understand where she was. Gradually, she realized she was still alive. Attempting to stand, she pushed against the ground. The instant she moved, unbearable pain shot through her body. Her legs completely failed beneath her. Agony exploded through them like fire. She immediately realized something was terribly wrong. Her leg was likely completely broken. Unable to move properly, she wondered how long she had remained unconscious. Despite everything, one fact gave her comfort. She was still alive. That alone felt like a miracle. Then her eyes landed on a familiar figure nearby. Hai was lying motionless atop a massive rock. The back of his head had smashed directly against the stone. Blood covered the rock completely. The sight filled Hua with panic. She desperately called out to him. She asked whether he was all right. She asked whether he was still alive. She promised she would come to him. But as she looked closer, reality crushed her hopes. Hai was already dead. The realization shattered her heart. Tears formed in her eyes. Even so, she forced herself forward. Ignoring the pain, she began crawling across the ground, using only her hands. Every movement sent waves of agony through her injured body. As she crawled, she remembered her grandfather's final words. He had told her to live. She repeated the command to herself, over and over. She had to survive. She had to survive and return to the Tang clan. She had to survive. She had to keep living for her grandfather. Driven by that determination, she continued dragging herself forward. Then suddenly, a shadow appeared before her. Hua slowly lifted her head. The moment she saw who was standing there, shock overtook her. Sosum stood directly in front of her. He was supposed to be dead. Unable to understand how he could still be alive, she stared at him in disbelief. Meanwhile, Sosum simply looked down at her. A slow grin spread across his face. His crimson eyes gleamed with dangerous intent. The final target for his advancement quest had finally appeared before him. To Sosum, Hua was no longer merely Tang Wu's granddaughter. She had become his next prey. Tang Hua suddenly screamed in desperation. She no longer spoke about misunderstandings, and instead begged for help. She desperately needed to return to the Tang family, but both of her legs were completely shattered, leaving her unable to even stand. As she looked up at Sosum, her eyes fell upon the blood-covered knife in his hand. Confusion appeared on her face. The blade was partially melted, and that sight immediately brought back a memory from her childhood. In that memory, her grandfather Tang Wu had been teaching her about the nature of the Tang clan's poison arts. He explained that those who cultivated internal energy through poison would inevitably accumulate poison inside their bodies. The more they trained, the more they became poison humans, with poison flowing through their bones, muscles, and even their blood. Tang Wu had further explained that the accumulated poison was not enough to become a major threat to its owner. However, it was more than enough to melt ordinary iron. To demonstrate his point, Tang Wu released poison-infused internal energy into an iron blade. Before Tang Hua's eyes, a portion of the blade slowly melted away. After showing her the result, Tang Wu instructed her never to become lazy with her training. He expressed his belief that one day she would reach his realm of mastery. He even believed she would eventually become a martial artist who surpassed him. The memory ended. Tang Hua stared at the melted knife in Sosum's hand and instantly understood everything. Tears began flowing from her eyes. The truth struck her all at once. She realized that Sosum had killed her grandfather. Her body trembled as grief overwhelmed her. Through tears, she struggled to comprehend how it could have happened. She remembered that Tang Wu had trusted Sosam enough to bestow the Tang surname upon him. To her, this betrayal was unforgivable. The pain in her heart quickly transformed into burning rage. She called him a traitor and swore that she would kill him. Her hatred exploded beyond control. She screamed repeatedly that she would kill him. However, her broken legs prevented her from standing. Unable to rise, she threw herself forward, while still lying on the ground. Driven entirely by fury, she lunged toward Sosum and grabbed hold of his legs. Sosum raised his blade and prepared to kill her. Yet when he looked down at her pitiful state, a different thought entered his mind. To him, it felt no different from looking at insects. His thoughts drifted to Anhui. Anhui was essentially a colossal gujar created by the heavenly demon castle. Within that giant jar, countless insects struggled to survive. They killed and were killed by one another in an endless cycle. According to the theory of the gujar, the longer a bug survived inside it, the more toxic it became. If every other insect died, and only one remained alive, all of the accumulated toxicity would eventually belong to that sole survivor. Sosum wondered just how powerful Tang Hua could become if she survived such a process. Instead of killing her, he slowly knelt down in front of her. As he looked directly into her eyes, he came to a realization. Killing her now would hold little meaning. It might not even satisfy the conditions of his quest. The reason was simple. Tang Hua was currently too weak. Tears continued falling from her eyes. Even while crying, she clenched her teeth in fury. After hearing herself described as weak, she could barely believe such words. Sosam then placed the knife directly in front of her face. A terrifying death glare accompanied his next declaration. He openly admitted that he had killed Tang Wu. Because of that fact, he told Tang Hua to come and claim the price of Tang Wu's life from him. He promised that he would be waiting. Those words only fueled Tang Hua's rage even further. She screamed that she cursed him. She swore that one day she would kill him. She promised that he would regret sparing her life. She repeatedly shouted Sosum's name with all the hatred in her heart. Sosum, however, paid no attention to her cries. He simply turned around and walked away while laughing. As he left, his thoughts shifted toward the future. Anhui was no longer the true gujar. Now the entire Murim had become one gigantic gujar. The orthodox faction, the unorthodox faction, and the heavenly demon castle would all participate in the coming struggle. Soon, countless insects would swarm across Murim. They would slaughter one another in a desperate fight for survival. To survive and continue hunting, Sosum needed to become much stronger than he currently was. At minimum, he needed enough strength to hold his own against an expert on Tang Wu's level. His thoughts then moved toward his advancement quest. A system window appeared before him. The window displayed the first-class advancement quest, Vagabond. The quest's completion condition required him to kill 100 enemies who were level 10 or higher. His current progress showed 99 completed kills out of 100 required. Only a single kill remained. Even so, Sosam believed that reaching level 30 would also be necessary. To achieve that goal, he would need to hunt more efficiently than ever before. A wild grin spread across his face. He decided that it was time to change his hunting grounds. He wanted a place filled with more blood. He wanted a place with more battles. Most importantly, he wanted a place that would provide more experience points. Meanwhile, elsewhere, another scene unfolded. Ash Shadow finally regained consciousness after Tang Wu's devastating explosion. The blast had left him battered and exhausted. As he struggled to breathe, he immediately began cursing Tang Wu. He complained about Tang Wu's insanity, unable to believe that someone would detonate hidden weapons directly in front of their enemies. He had believed that the Tang clan's heaven-shrouding petal rain technique had been lost. Standing nearby, Shifting Shadow calmly corrected him. According to Shifting Shadow, Tang Wu had not used the complete version of the technique. Tang Wu lacked sufficient internal energy, meaning he only replicated the form of the technique. In reality, he had simply detonated the hidden weapons he had previously planted. Even so, Shifting Shadow privately admitted that the attack's power was astonishing despite being incomplete. His attention then shifted toward the muscular woman lying nearby. After observing her condition, Shifting Shadow acknowledged that they had been fortunate. If they had not used Water Shadow as a shield, they would have been completely annihilated by the explosion. Ash Shadow agreed. He commented that Water Shadow had always been exceptionally tough. He also noted that she remained alive thanks to her heart guard, although she was still half dead. Shifting Shadow then issued a new order. He instructed Ash Shadow to take Water Shadow and return to Mubon. As for himself, he planned to travel to the Murim Alliance and prepare the second stratagem. The moment Ash Shadow heard this, panic erupted across his face. He immediately protested. The idea of returning to Mubon alone terrified him. He desperately insisted that they should travel together. He repeatedly called out to Shifting Shadow. However, Shifting Shadow vanished without another word. Left behind alone, Ash Shadow ground his teeth in frustration. At the same time, fear consumed him. He openly admitted that he was terrified. Soon afterward, other members carried away Water Shadow's injured body, while Ash Shadow prepared himself mentally for the journey ahead. He continuously repeated words of encouragement to himself. He convinced himself that he could do it. He reassured himself that nothing bad would happen. After taking a deep breath, he finally approached the hall. Gathering every ounce of courage he possessed, he opened the door and entered. Inside, Mubon awaited him. The moment he stood before his clan master, Ash Shadow immediately bowed deeply. Trying to sound confident despite his fear, he reported that he had successfully completed the first stratagem without any issues. He nervously added that Water Shadow had only suffered slight injuries. He quickly repeated that there had truly been no problems at all. Continuing his report, he proudly stated that the Namgung clan had been annihilated. He further claimed that he had personally taken the patriarch's head. He also mentioned that Tang Wu was dead as well. As the report continued, Mubon slowly began walking toward him. Every step made Ash Shadow increasingly nervous. The pressure in the room became overwhelming. Finally, Mubon stopped directly in front of him. With a cold and intimidating presence, Mubon ordered Ash Shadow to repeat his statement. Mubon specifically asked about the first stratagem. He demanded confirmation regarding whether the operation had truly been completed without any issues. Ash Shadow immediately froze when he heard those words. Fear gripped him so strongly that his entire body began trembling. Sweat formed across his face as he lowered his head deeply and admitted that everything Mubon had said was correct. At that moment, an incredibly dangerous and overwhelming energy erupted from Mubon's body. The pressure was so immense that the ground itself began shaking and cracking beneath them. The atmosphere grew heavy, and Ash Shadow felt completely overwhelmed by the terrifying aura. Even so, he kept his head lowered and did not dare look up. Mubon slowly stepped forward and stood directly before him. A deadly glare filled his eyes as he addressed the situation. He pointed out that if everything had truly proceeded without any issues, then there was no explanation for Shifting Shadow's unexpected visit to the Murim Alliance. He also questioned why Water Shadow had returned in a half-dead state despite the supposed success of the plan. The questions struck Ash Shadow like a thunderbolt. Horror spread across his face, and he completely lost his words. He could not find a single response. Mubon walked past him while continuing his warning. He made it clear that if a situation like this ever happened again, Ash Shadow's death would not be an easy one. The threat carried absolute certainty and left no room for doubt. Terrified beyond measure, Ash Shadow answered in a low and shaky voice. He acknowledged the warning and expressed his understanding while continuing to keep his head lowered. Afterward, Mubon approached the unconscious body of Water Shadow. The injured figure lay motionless on the ground. Mubon knelt beside him and gently placed a hand on his face. At the same time, he activated his mana. As his power flowed, he spoke of countless streams eventually returning to their source. He described how, in the end, there was no distinction between one individual and another. He explained that flesh could perish, but the Chi Ocean would continue to flow through his own veins. He referred to this mysterious technique as the return of all streams to the source. Then the true effect of the technique revealed itself. Using his mana, Mubon began drawing Water Shadow's youth into himself. A visible transformation occurred. Mubon's body became younger, returning to the appearance of a young boy, while Water Shadow's body rapidly aged and became old and frail. Mubon declared that Water Shadow would become whole once again through him. Ash Shadow witnessed the entire process. The sight left him completely stunned and speechless. Horror filled his eyes as he watched the impossible event unfold before him. Despite his fear, Ash Shadow forced himself to congratulate Mubon. Even after speaking, he kept his head lowered. Fear continued consuming him. Sweat constantly dripped from his face as he struggled to remain composed. Mubon then walked back toward him and slowly knelt down in front of him. Although his expression remained calm, the pressure he radiated became even more frightening. he revealed that there was still one matter that had captured his curiosity. The moment those words were spoken, Ash Shadow's sweating intensified. Muban reached forward and placed a hand beneath Ash Shadow's chin, forcing him to face him. He then demanded an explanation regarding the failure of the first stratagem. At the same time, Muban activated his mana once again. The terrifying pressure caused Ash Shadow to panic. Stammering uncontrollably, he began explaining the reason for the failure. He revealed that there had been someone who was never part of the original plan. According to the information provided by Shifting Shadow, that mysterious individual had appeared alongside the soul-chasing poison hand. Ash Shadow quickly added that the unknown person had fallen from the cliffs of Seonjung Mountain. He then remembered another crucial detail and urgently explained that the man was an expert who emitted light. And before we continue the video, I just want to give you guys a quick update. I've created a backup channel because this channel recently received a strike. So if anything happens to this channel in the future, I'll continue all ongoing series there. Make sure to subscribe to the backup channel so you don't miss updates on your favorite series. The link is pinned in the description and comment section. Now with that out of the way, let's get back to the story. The word immediately caught Muban's attention. Muban focused on that single detail and repeated it in his mind. Growing increasingly nervous, Ash Shadow clarified further. He explained that it was not ordinary light. What he had witnessed was a pillar of light. The moment those words left his mouth, Muban's eyes widened noticeably. A realization seemed to flash through his mind. He slowly released Ash Shadow's chin. Freed from the grip, Ash Shadow immediately began coughing as he struggled to breathe properly again. Without wasting any time, Muban called for Biyun and Gwangun. The two subordinates quickly arrived and respectfully lowered their heads before him. They awaited his command. Muban ordered Biyun to take Ash Shadow and travel to the bottom of the cliff at Seonjung Mountain. He instructed that if the mysterious individual was dead, his corpse was to be brought back. He further ordered that even if the body had been shattered into pieces, every remaining bone was to be recovered and delivered to him. Biyun accepted the command without hesitation and pledged to carry it out exactly as ordered. After receiving the mission, Biyun departed immediately with Ash Shadow. Once they were gone, Muban turned his attention to Gwangun. He ordered Gwangun to send a message to Old Beck. The instruction immediately alarmed Gwangun. He warned that such an action would be dangerous and respectfully requested Muban to reconsider. In response, Muban fixed him with a cold and terrifying death glare. The pressure behind that gaze was enough to make Gwangun panic instantly. Realizing there was no room for argument, Gwangun immediately accepted the order and expressed his understanding. He then left to carry out the mission. Left alone, Muban quietly reflected on the information he had just received. The image of a pillar of light repeatedly surfaced in his mind. As he thought about it more deeply, he reached a startling conclusion. He began suspecting that it truly had been a level up after all. As those thoughts lingered in his mind, the scene gradually shifted elsewhere. Far away, a crow flew through the sky, before finally landing on the hand of an elderly man. Attached to the crow's leg was a letter. The old man carefully removed the message and read its contents. After finishing, he immediately set off toward another destination. His journey led him to a woman named Yeon. At that moment, Yeon was completely relaxed and enjoying a meal. The old man approached her and informed her that he had something important to tell her. He explained that a letter had arrived from someone, and that the message requested their help in locating a particular person. Yeon, however, remained focused on her food. While continuing to eat her noodles, she casually told the old man to wait because she was still eating. The old man obediently stood still and waited. Meanwhile, Yeon continued enjoying her meal without the slightest hurry. After finishing, she took one final sip of her drink. A satisfied expression appeared on her face as she set the cup down and commented on how delicious it had been. Only then did she turn her attention toward the food seller and ask how much she owed. The seller informed her that the total cost was 3 coins. Yeon reached inside her clothing to retrieve some money. As she searched for the coins, part of her cleavage became visible. The seller noticed this and immediately smirked. A grin spread across his face as he began making inappropriate remarks. He clicked his tongue and commented on a young woman drinking so much alcohol in broad daylight. He then encouraged her to visit his tavern again whenever she wanted drinks and hearty snacks. The man even suggested that he could drink together with her. His words immediately irritated Yeon. Without responding verbally, she pulled out a single coin. The seller's expression changed at once. Confused and annoyed, he reminded her that the cost was 3 coins. Instead of handing it over normally, Yeon casually tossed the coin into the air. The unexpected action left the seller stunned. He immediately shouted in confusion and demanded to know what she thought she was doing. A grin appeared on Yon's face. She proposed a simple game involving heads or tails. The seller became even more confused. He questioned why he should participate and insisted that she simply pay the 3 coins she owed. In response, Yeon fixed him with a chilling death glare. The intimidating look instantly disrupted his confidence. He began questioning why she was staring at him like that. However, Yeon continued glaring at him without saying anything. The pressure from her gaze steadily increased. The seller's bravado quickly vanished. Fear replaced his earlier confidence. His body stiffened, and he clenched his teeth nervously, unable to withstand the intimidating stare any longer. He finally gave in and shakily chose heads. Yeon smirked as the coin fell to the ground, but it landed on heads. The man became overjoyed, happily declaring that it had landed on heads. Yeon looked visibly irritated. As she walked away with her elderly subordinate, she dismissed the outcome as nothing more than something boring. Believing the matter had ended, the shopkeeper nervously wished them a safe trip. After the two of them left, the shopkeeper let out a sigh of relief. He wondered if Yeon had been a martial artist, and admitted that he had nearly died over nothing more than 3 coins. In the very next moment, Yeon suddenly reappeared behind him. With a single finger, she pierced straight through his head, killing him instantly. She treated it as nothing more than a careless little accident. The old man calmly approached and reminded her that the coin had clearly landed on heads. Yeon casually flipped the coin over herself before flashing another smirk. After changing the result to tails, she acted as though that had always been the true outcome. The old man let out a weary sigh. He pointed out that causing a scene like this in broad daylight only made it troublesome to clean everything up afterward. Yeon showed no concern whatsoever. She casually slit the shopkeeper's throat as well, ensuring there was no trace of life left in him. She then picked up the shopkeeper's severed head and declared that they could simply kill everyone if necessary. She even offered to handle the entire task herself. The old man calmly stated that he would take care of it instead. As the old man prepared to leave, Yeon suddenly remembered something. She cheerfully called out to him and reminded him about what he had been trying to say earlier. She then asked who it was that they were supposed to find while wearing a playful smirk. The scene then shifted to the Murim Alliance, where the leaders of the Orthodox Murim had gathered for an important meeting. The alliance leader, the Taoist sage of heaven, observed that everyone had finally assembled and formally announced the beginning of the Murim Great Council. The patriarch of the Hebe Peng clan, Peng Muyok, immediately demanded confirmation of the rumor claiming that the Namgung clan had truly been annihilated by the heavenly demon castle. The matriarch of the Sichuan Tang family, Tang Huaryong, harshly rebuked him. She reminded everyone that Brother Tang had already crossed the Yellow Springs, making it foolish to believe that everything was merely a rumor. Peng Muyok reacted angrily to her words. The alliance leader stepped in to calm everyone before revealing the findings of the Murim Alliance's investigation. According to the investigation, it was indeed true that the Namgung clan had been attacked by the heavenly demon castle. The Wudang sect leader, Heonyang, exploded with rage, declaring that those people had finally made their move. The Shaolin Temple abbot, Bang Chiun, quietly recited Amitabha. The alliance leader explained that the heavenly demon castle had remained silent for hundreds of years. Although no one understood why they had suddenly revealed themselves now, one fact had become undeniable. Their strength was extraordinary. Heonyang remarked that their power was great enough to completely destroy the Namgung clan. The alliance leader corrected him by stating that it was not a complete extermination, because one survivor still remained. At that moment, Namgung Hye entered the council hall. She respectfully bowed before the gathered seniors of the Murim and introduced herself as the second daughter of the Namgung clan. Tang Huaryong expressed her surprise upon learning that there had actually been a survivor. She then instructed Namgung Hye to personally explain everything that had happened. She specifically asked whether the people who attacked the Namgung clan and killed Brother Tang had truly been members of the heavenly demon castle. Namgung Hye confirmed that the Namgung clan had indeed suffered at the hands of the heavenly demon castle. She revealed that if the elder known as soul-chasing Poison Hand had not intervened, she would have lost her life there as well. The patriarch of the Zhuge clan, Zhuge Mun, acknowledged the seriousness of the situation. However, he insisted that they first needed to determine the exact scale of the enemy before acting recklessly. Before he could continue, Tang Huaryong suddenly hurled one of her poison weapons directly toward Zhuge Mun. The weapon narrowly missed him and instead embedded itself into the wall behind him. Enraged, Zhuge Mun shouted at the Tang matriarch, He demanded to know why she had been behaving so arrogantly throughout the meeting, and questioned whether she truly understood the gravity of the situation. Grinding her teeth in fury, Tang Huaryong roared back that everyone else was the one failing to understand reality. She reminded them that the heavenly demon castle had invaded the Namgung clan itself and reduced it to ruins. She mocked the suggestion that they should proceed cautiously, declaring that the attack was nothing less than an official declaration of war. To her, the meaning was simple. It was war. Zhuge Moon desperately argued that this was exactly what the enemy wanted. He warned that such a decision would inevitably result in countless rivers of blood being spilled. Tang Huaryong then turned directly toward the alliance leader. She reminded him that he had personally summoned everyone there, and demanded that he would not actually follow the timid proposal of what she considered an ink-brained fool. Every pair of eyes shifted toward the alliance leader, waiting for his answer. A grin slowly spread across the alliance leader's face. He openly agreed that it was indeed war. He declared that far too much blood from the Orthodox faction had already been spilled because of this tragedy. According to the law of the Murim, such blood could only be repaid with more blood. Tang Huaryong burst into wild laughter. She passionately praised his decision and proclaimed the Murim's unchanging law. A sword must be repaid with a sword, and blood must always be repaid with blood. The alliance leader then addressed every pillar of the Murim gathered before him. From that very moment onward, the Murim alliance officially declared war against the heavenly demon castle. Standing among everyone else, Namgung Hye quietly smiled as well. As night fell, the atmosphere became calmer. The alliance leader and Zhuge Moon walked together, while discussing everything that had happened during the council. The alliance leader explained that Tang Huaryong had been completely blinded by grief and rage over Senior Tang's death. He had also heard that one of the children who had departed alongside Senior Tang had returned to the Tang family in a terrible condition. Because of that, he asked Zhuge Moon to overlook the Tang matriarch's disrespectful behavior during the meeting. Zhuge Moon calmly replied that he did not mind her behavior in the slightest. He even admitted that the greater the Tang family's hatred became, the better it would be for the coming conflict. Their anger would ensure that they fought more fiercely than anyone else, and willingly led the vanguard in the war against the heavenly demon castle. The alliance leader laughed loudly in approval. He praised Zhuge Moon for exactly that way of thinking. He further revealed that messages had already been sent to the other sects, meaning that all of the Orthodox factions would soon unite under one banner. He declared that the Central Plains would soon shatter the peace that had lasted for hundreds of years, covering the land with blood once again. He even admitted that they were all human butchers at their core, who had simply spent years wearing the masks of the Orthodox path while sitting peacefully around tables. Zhuge Moon acknowledged that the alliance leader was not wrong. However, he warned that the cursed killing star had already risen. Its appearance perfectly coincided with the heavenly demon castle's return, making the timing deeply ominous. He urged the alliance leader to remain cautious. The alliance leader reflected on the ancient legend surrounding the extreme yin-cursed killing star, a heavenly sign said to call for blood whenever it appeared. According to legend, it was born carrying the terrifying power of supernatural monsters and chaotic gods. Even so, he remained unconcerned. He believed that since the Murim itself had already been built upon endless bloodshed and mountains of corpses, one more ominous star could hardly change anything. Nevertheless, he assured Zhuge Moon that he would remember his warning. After the alliance leader departed, Zhuge Moon remained standing alone in silence. Left with only his thoughts, Zhuge Moon reflected that the Murim had always been built upon blood and corpses. To him, that brutal truth alone defined what the Murim truly was.